Hello everyone, welcome back to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm AP Calculus, it's been a while, and I am finally here with the compilation, the full story of When a Hero Suffers by OK Jace. Absolutely love the series. Hopefully I'll be getting more stories out sometime soon, but yeah, more videos. Anyway, hope you have a good one, enjoy this compilation. Don't know how long it's going to be, but it looks like it's going to be a while. And please take note of the trigger warnings on screen. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys later. Chapter 1, Prologue. When a hero suffers, who's supposed to protect them? Izuku Midoriya had a heart of a hero. This was apparent to anyone who knew him for any time at all. He always fought for the underdog, and he always came out on top. It wasn't that he didn't struggle, but rather his struggle stayed hidden with a masterful smile. Maybe that's why no one noticed his pain until it was too late. Hindsight, as always, is 20/20. All might change after Kamino. Everyone knew it, but it was only Izuku who saw the full extent of what that night did to him. It started slow. "You need to be stronger," he said in the middle of training one day. "You're not going to be able to rely on me anymore to save you." Izuku frowned. "Right," he replied, pushing his hair back from his face. "I know." "Do you?" the man spat. "Your moves are weak and you're lacking control. You won't be able to defeat a common criminal, much less awful one, if you don't shape up soon." Izuku faltered. All Might had never spoken to him that harshly before. He swallowed the lump in his throat, understanding empathetically. "I understand. I'll try harder, All Might, I promise." All Might just grunted. "You better. Now show me that combination again." They ended up training through dinner, and the boy didn't get back to the dorms until late that night. He trudged through the common room, sore and exhausted from the hours of quirk training. That night, he cried himself to sleep. From then on, their training gradually became harder. The late nights became more and more commonplace, and the impossible exercises wore him down until he could no longer do what the man asked of him. "Get up!" All Might spat, using his foot to push on Izuku's shoulder, flipping him from his stomach so he was staring up at the sky. He glowered down at the boy. "I thought you wouldn't be the number one hero." All Might's lips wobbled, and he clenched his eyes shut. "All Might, please," he whimpered, choking on a sob. "Stop." All Might sneered. "You want me to stop?" He bent down to the boy's level, grabbing a fistful of his green curls and forcing him to turn his head. Izuku's eyes immediately snapped open, with tears welling up in his eyes. "Well, you have my power, which means I'm in charge," he spat. "So I won't stop until one of us is dead, understand? Now get up." He shoved the boy's head back down, and it landed with a thud in the grass as All Might rose to his feet. He folded his arms, tapping his foot impatiently, as Izuku laid on the ground, breath coming out shallow and in gulps. Slowly, the boy moved to stand. His body swayed from the effort, and he blinked back tears, body crackling with green electricity as he fired up his quirk yet again. That was the night he decided to leave, though he couldn't put his plan into motion for several more weeks. One Friday night, long after the rest of his classmates went to bed, he got up quietly, gathering his things. He placed his phone neatly on the desk, alongside a single sheet of paper. "To my friends of Class 1A, I'm sorry for leaving you this way. I grew up hoping one day I could be a hero, but I've lost sight of what a hero is. Some things are too painful, even for me. To Mr. Aizawa-sensei, thank you for putting up with a problem child like me. I didn't deserve your kindness. Don't try to find me, I'll be okay. With love, Deku." The boy sniffed, blinking back tears as he slung his backpack over his shoulder. He moved towards the door, and then paused, allowing himself one more glance back. He swallowed the lump in his throat before quietly slipping out the door. Chapter 2. The next morning started like any other. It was a weekend, which meant there was no specific schedule for the students to adhere to. They spent the morning slowly dripping into the common room, whether it was to make coffee or breakfast, or just to seek out company, until eventually the entirety of Class 1A had congregated. Bakugo was in the kitchen area, cooking breakfast while Kirishima clung to his side. The two had been practically inseparable since Kamino. Not that anyone blamed them. Denki, Mina, and Sero conversed loudly around them, distracting the cooking with their antics. Momo, Jiro, Shoji, and Koda were having some tea around the counter, with Ida, Uraraka, Todoroki, and Sue on the couches behind them, simply chatting. The rest of the class was scattered in various places throughout the common room. All of a sudden, Uraraka paused, humming as she glanced up at the room. "That's weird," she muttered. "Deku's usually up by now." This immediately pulled Todoroki from his conversation with Ida, and he furrowed his brow, surveying the area as the girl had. "You're right," he observed. "Someone should wake him." "I'll do it," Ida said, then raising to his feet in one swift motion. "As class representative, it is my duty to make sure that all my classmates are well and accounted for." Uraraka and Sue shared an amused look, nodding as Ida made his way down the hallway towards Midoriya's room. "Midoriya," he called out, knocking twice on the door. "Are you up?" He was met with silence, eyebrows furrowing deeper with each moment that passed. He knocked again. "Midoriya?" After several more seconds of silence, Ida tried the handle, surprised to find it unlocked. Slowly, it turned as he pushed the door open. "Midoriya, it's late," he said as he stepped into the room. "Are you alright?" Ida paused, glancing around the room. Empty. "Midoriya?" He frowned as his eyes raked carefully over the room. The bed was neatly made, no sign of anyone having lived therein at all. His gaze continued as his eyes swept over the desk, freezing as they landed on the boy's phone and note. Ida stepped hesitantly towards the desk, heart in his throat as he glanced down at the paper. He scanned over the words, eyes widening in horror. "Oh no," he muttered, hurriedly grabbing the note and phone before running out to the room. "Guys!" he yelled as he ran down the hall. "Someone call Miss Aizawa!" The class began to stir at the commotion, and Uraraka frowned, rising to her feet as Ida rounded the corner. "What's wrong?" she asked nervously. Todoroki stood as well. "Where's Midoriya?" "He's gone." Ida breathed out, catching his breath as more of his classmates' conversations died down. "Midoriya's gone." From across the room, Bakugo dropped the pan, which hit the edge of the stove with a crash before clattering to the ground. "Huh?" He turned, sulking angrily towards Ida. "The fuck you said, Four Eyes?" Ida frowned, holding out the note with a shaky hand. "He left this note." Bakugo ripped it from his classmate's hand, eyes poring over each sentence, growing wide as he read the words over and over. Uraraka peered over his shoulder, reading aloud. Murmurs rippled through the class, and Momo stood. "I'll call Miss Aizawa," she said, running out of the room. About 30 minutes later, Mr. Aizawa showed up with Principal Nezu on his shoulder, Detective Tsukauchi and All Might trailing just behind. Aizawa's tired eyes were laced with concern as he scanned over the students, gaze landing on Ida. "Tell me what happened." Right." Ida stepped forward. "Well, sir, we noticed that Midoriya hadn't come out for breakfast yet, so I went to check on him, like any good class representative would," he explained. "He didn't answer the door, but it was unlocked. When I went in, the room was empty." He paused. "Except for this note." He handed them the note, hands still trembling. Aizawa took the note, staring at it with a furrowed brow as he read, Nezu and the other two reading over his shoulder. "I have put a tracker on his phone," All Might said suddenly, earning a few gazes as he fished his own phone from his pocket. Ida frowned. "He left that too," he muttered, handing the phone to All Might. The man's eyes seemed to darken before quickly relaxing into a more neutral expression. "It seems Midoriya isn't interested in being found," Nezu said in his typical analytical fashion. "Bullshit," Bakugo growled. "I don't give a shit what that nerd wants. We're gonna fucking find him, right?" Mr. Aizawa gave the boy a small smile. "Don't worry, Bakugo. We'll find him." Huh, the blonde huffed. I ain't worried, he muttered, crossing his arms. Just pissed off the decision is leaving us high and dry like this. Kirishima placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder, but he shook it off, moving to go sit down on one of the other couches. Mr. Aizawa sighed before glancing along at Nezu. We should put in a loadout for all the pro-heroes agencies in this area to be on the lookout, he said before turning to face to the class again. Detective Tsukauchi will conduct interviews on each one of you. Anything you can recall about Midoriya's behaviours as of late could be helpful. The class erupted into murmurs again, and Aizawa sighed. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the noise. Once everyone was quiet, Principal Nezu spoke. I understand this is concerning, but you're all worried about your friend, he said calmly. But rest assured, our top priority right now is finding Midoriya and bringing him back to UA. Your cooperation will be absolutely vital in ensuring this investigation runs smoothly. There was a stretch of silence, as if no one dared to take that first step. Then slowly, hesitantly, Tokiyami raised his hand. Students around him glanced his way, and Aizawa nodded. The bird took a breath, then spoke. I think I might have remembered something. While Principal Nezu and All Might worked on sending out alerts about missing high schools throughout the city, the students of Class 1A had been told to head back to their dorms and await further instruction. That was, except for Tokoyami, who was seated in the common room across from Detective Tsukauchi as well as Miss Aizawa. Thank you for taking your time with us, Tokoyami. Detective Tsukauchi spoke calmly. I know it's been quite a morning, and we appreciate you making the effort to aid us in our investigation. Tokoyami nodded. It's no problem, he said. I can't promise it'll be much help, though. The detective gave him a reassuring smile. That's alright, just tell us anything you can remember. Well, he paused, swallowing his nerves. It was just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I'm not sure. He frowned, thinking back. I was out late night, practicing controlling Dark Shadow, when I saw Midoriya. I assumed he'd come back from a training session, but he looked bad. Mr. Aizawa furrowed his eyebrows. Bad how? He was limping, the bird said with a frown, and as I got closer, it looked like he might cry. Did you ever talk to Midoriya about this? Detective Tsukauchi asked. Tokoyami shook his head. I tried the next day, he said. I asked him if everything was alright, but he brushed me off. He said it's been a rough night, but that he's feeling better. He paused. He wasn't limping anymore, so I believed him. I understand, Tsukauchi said with a nod. Was there anything else? Tokoyami paused. I don't think so, he said. Then he seemed tired. We've all been getting all been working extra hard lately. He frowned. I guess I didn't think much of it. None of us could have seen this coming, Mr. Aizawa said with a frown, and Tsukauchi nodded. Thank you for your time, Tokoyami, the detective said. We'll let you know if we need anything else from you. The bird nodded, moving to stand. Thank you. He bowed, walking away. Mr. Aizawa sighed, putting his head in his hand. Tsukauchi shifted beside him, finishing up what he was writing in his notes. Now may be a good time for you to tell me anything you could recall. The detective muttered gently. Tsukauchi knew that the teacher cared deeply for his student, and behind his neutral exterior, he was undoubtedly filled with worry. Aizawa let out a long exhale, looking up to meet the detective's eyes. Tokoyami's right. That kid has been tired, he muttered. He fell asleep in my class a few times, a week or two back. I asked him if everything was okay, but he just brushed me off. The detective nodded, jotting something down in his notes. And what did Midoriya say when he brushed you off? Aizawa furrowed his eyebrows, thinking back to that day. He told me he had been working really hard on some new moves, and that he'd been losing sleep in favour of training. He assured me he was fine and it wouldn't happen again. And did it? Aizawa frowned. No, it didn't, he said. He still looked tired, but he didn't fall asleep anymore. He seemed fine. The man paused, shaking his head. I should have checked him again. I should have. Aizawa. The detective cut him off with a hand on his shoulder. It's not your fault. You couldn't have known. Mr. Aizawa frowned, then nodded. He knew the man was right. Still, he felt he could have done more for his student, who needed someone more than he ever realized. He promised himself that when they got Midoriya back, he would be there for him, no matter what. He would help that boy see that he belonged. He didn't care how long it took. Chapter 3. The night Deku left UA, he used the black whip to zip from rooftop to rooftop, attempting to put as much distance between him and his old life as possible, but he couldn't forget his instinct to save. He spent the first couple of days stopping a few minor villain attacks throughout the city, apprehending the villains before promptly floating away. He was doing his best to stay out of sight, especially from anyone who might be out searching for him. This was made easier by his new suit, courtesy of Mei Hatsume, and the new set of skills he had recently acquired from the other wielders. But by the time Monday rolled around, Izuku missed his friends. He was tired and sore, having had no place to rest for very long. He found a very secluded alleyway, curling up against the wall and sobbing into his knees. He didn't know how long he stayed like that, but eventually he began to hear footsteps. Fortunately, danger sense didn't activate, so he elected to ignore it, simply curling further into himself, wishing he could disappear entirely. The footsteps slowed to a stop. Hey, kid, a male voice rang out. Are you crying? The boy froze, lifting his head slightly to wipe at his tears. No, he said, not yet looking at the man. Sweat's just leaking from my eyes, he quipped, much too tired to filter his words. There was another pause, then the man laughed. Good joke! And then a moment later, boo, bad joke. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows as he recognized that voice. Slowly, he glanced up. Twice from the League of Villains. Shit, he muttered, moving to stand, but his knee gave out from under him, still messed up when All Might had stepped on it the week before. He stumbled, leaning back against the wall for support, and twice paused. Hey, I know you. You're that kid from UA. He paused. Midoriya, isn't it? Midoriya blanched, glancing down. Keep your voice down, he muttered. Twice frowned. Hey, are you okay? He took a moment to really survey the boy. The bruises littering his skin, the dark circles under his eyes, and the pain behind them. You don't look so good. Pause. I don't care. I'm fine, Deku winced. Please, just go away. Why aren't you in school? Deku froze. Why was he asking so many questions? Danger sense had yet to go off, so the man didn't seem to be a threat at the moment, but his persistence was unnerving. I left, he answered after a moment. Twice furrowed his eyebrows. Why? None of your business. Deku spat back, and the villain blinked back in surprise. Fair enough, he muttered. How rude. Deku frowned, pushing himself off the wall, ignoring the way his body protested, but Twice could see it clearly on the boy's face. Why don't you come back to base with me for a bit? He said after a moment. Deku raised his eyebrow. Is that a serious question? Twice just blinked. Do you think I have a death wish or something? Oh, please, Twice said with a scoff. You know I'm no real threat right now. The boy paused. How did you... Twice shrugged. That's not why you would have entertained a conversation with me for this long if you thought I was. Deku didn't respond. Besides, Twice continued, it seems like you're running away from something, and in your weakened state. He paused, surveying the boy again, ignoring his glare. Finding a safe place to lay low is your best bet. Izuku swallowed thickly, staring down at the villain before him. He wasn't entirely sure if he could trust him yet, but his knee ached and his stomach swirled with nausea, and he wanted nothing more than to just lay down. So he simply nodded, allowing Twice to lead him back to the base of the League of Villains. When they got back to the base, an old abandoned bar tucked within a line of rundown shops, Deku gulped, glancing at Twice. "This is your base?" Twice nodded, charging forward without a care in the world. "Yep," he confirmed. "Don't worry, you'll love it." Pause. "It sucks." The boy couldn't help but let out a small chuckle from his lips as he followed the villain into the bar. "Guys, come here!" Twice called out as he made his way inside. "Look who I found!" Slowly, the members of the League of Villains began to creep out, various levels of confusion on their faces as they spotted the boy. Finally, the group was completed by Shigaraki and Toga, who just gasped like she had won the lottery. "Izuku!" she squealed, running over and draping her arms around him. He flinched, swallowing thickly as he glanced at his shoes. "Twice, what the fuck?" Darby spoke then, igniting a few low murmurs from the rest of the group. Shigaraki stepped forward, surveying the young hero with curiosity. "How did you manage to get him here without physically restraining him?" Twice shook his head. "He's not a captive," he explained. "He's hurt." "I'm fine," Deku hissed, attempting to pry himself from Toga's grip, but she pouted, her hold on the boy seeming to only tighten. Twice turned, looking at him dubiously. "Oh yeah? Stand on one leg then." Izuku cursed internally. He knew his right leg was injured too badly for him to hold, and he was surely too tired to stand on his left, so he just huffed, crossing his arms. "Why did you bring him here?" Spinner asked. "It could be a trap." "You can check my bag," Deku offered weakly, holding it out to Toga, who dropped her hand on the boy in its favour, beginning to rifle through it. "I left anything they could track me with. All I've got is just some clothes and snacks and stuff." Toga looked up from the bed, nodding in confirmation, and at the League's baffled looks, Twice explained. "He ran away from you, eh?" Shigaraki blinked. "Why on earth would you do that?" "None of your fucking business," the boy spat, and Dabi barked out laughing. "Isn't this kid great?" Twice exclaimed. "So rude." Deku frowned. "Look, he told me I could crash here for a bit. If not, that's fine, I can just go," he muttered. "I'm really not looking for trouble." Toga pouted, wrapping her arms around the green-haired boy again as she blinked up at Shigaraki. "Come on, Shiggy, we gotta let him stay." "Don't call me that," Shigaraki murmured, scratching at his neck as he looked at Deku. The boy before him looked so tired, so broken. He really didn't seem to be a threat at the moment. Hell, he may even come in handy. "Fine," he relented. "He can stay here for a while as he recovers. But Toga, Twice, you're in charge of keeping an eye on him." "Yes!" Toga cheered, grinning wryly. "I won't let him out of my sight." Deku groaned internally. "Please let me out of your sight," he muttered, actually earning chuckles from a few League members. "Take him upstairs and get him cleaned," Shigaraki ordered. "He can rest there." Toga nodded, already beginning to lead Izuku to the base. "You're on it, boss." The boy blinked, glancing back at the rest of the League. Thanks," he murmured as he was dragged up the stairs. Chapter 4. Tsukauchi continued conducting interviews with Aizawa and the students over the course of the next 2 days. Then, on Monday, it was time to go back to class. How can we still have class when Midoriya is missing? Kaminari whined from his desk. The students having all arrived for the homeroom and were now waiting for Miss Aizawa. I know, but I understand how you feel. But we can't just put our schooling on hold. Who knows how long it'll be until they find him after all? Kirishima frowned. Oh man, don't say that. Whatever. Bakugo sneered angrily. Who needs that loser anyway? Bakugo, eat a chest size. Jiro tutted. Can't you just say you're worried about him like a normal person? As if! Bakugo screeched, pulling chuckles from a few of their classmates. Just then, in walked Miss Aizawa. Alright class, settle down. The man seemed to groan, heading to his desk. I know everyone's feeling on edge right now, but we have to keep things moving as normal. Mina frowned, raising her hand despite calling out anyway. Is there any word on Midoriya? Miss Aizawa sighed. Not yet, he said. We have several agencies out searching, and Detective Tsukauchi will be conducting interviews with you all throughout the next week. Of course, we'll let you know if there's any progress. The students nodded, glancing around the room at silent reassurance to each other. Classes seemed to move by in slow motion as the day crept on. By the time lunch rolled around, everyone was exhausted. Man, I want to go home. Kirishima moaned as he walked through the hallway of Bakugo. The blonde simply grunted, gripping his books tighter. Ah, young Bakugo. A deeper voice pulled the boys from their thoughts, and they froze, glancing over to see All Might. He was leaning against his office door with his arms crossed, an easy smile on his face. Could I have a word with you? Bakugo frowned. Sure, he said, glancing up at Kirishima. I'll catch with you later, he muttered. The redhead nodded, offering a small smile before walking away. All Might led Bakugo into his office, and they sat down on opposite sides of each other. All Might went to speak, but Bakugo cut him off. If this is about Deku, I don't want to hear about it, he grumbled. I know he's your protege or whatever, but I think he's an idiot for running away with a tail between his legs. He huffed, crossing his arms. What, he couldn't hack it, so now we'll have to pick up the pieces? Yes, I know. The man's expression darkened. It's quite disappointing. Yeah, Wait, what? Bakugo paused, furrowing his eyebrows as he glanced over at All Might. The man sighed, leaning back in his seat. It's true I had high hopes in young Midoriya, but in the end, he was just another disappointment. Bakugo blinked. He hadn't been expecting the man to actually agree. He gulped. I actually figured you knew where he was. He paused, or why he left. Bakugo glowered at the boy. And why do you think I know that? He hissed, and Bakugo actually froze. Then, as quickly as it came, the man's shadowy expression morphed into a disinterested gaze. Bakugo blinked, swallowing thickly. I just mean because you're his mentor and everything, he muttered awkwardly. The two stared at each other for several seconds, until at last All Might spoke again. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't have time to be focusing on the past, he declared. I have to look towards the future, and that's where you come in. Me? Bakugo uttered with a frown. All Might crossed his arms. Yes, it's clear to me that young Midoriya is no longer fit to wield my quirk, he said decisively. We're gonna find Deku and bring him back here. And when that happens, I'm gonna need a worthy successor to transfer one for all to. The man paused, and I think that someone should be you. Bakugo froze. What, you don't think Deku's worthy anymore? Didn't you just say the same? Bakugo All Might jeered, and Bakugo's chest grew tight as he spoke. Deku ran away. He's a quitter. He doesn't have what it takes. I want to train you to be the best of the best, he boasted. Do you have what it takes, young Bakugo? The boy froze, heart hammering in his chest. Something about this felt very wrong. And yet here, sitting in front of him, was his literal hero, telling him everything he ever wanted to hear. He swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded. I do. All Might grunted. Excellent, we'll start training after school today. Bakugo blinked. Today? Is that a problem? The man glared, and Bakugo shrank down before him. No, I just thought... He paused, swallowing thickly. No, it's not a problem. All Might nodded. Good. After school then, he muttered. Don't be late. After school that day, Detective Tsukauchi and Mr. Aizawa met up at the dorm building once again. I want to speak to Bakugo, Mr. Aizawa said as they entered the common room, but I've been told he's training with All Might this afternoon. All Might? The detective confirmed. You mean he's not out looking for Midoriya? Aizawa simply shrugged. I've learnt to not ask questions when it comes to that man. He grumbled sluggishly. Just then, Ida approached him. Mr. Aizawa, detective, hello. He bowed respectfully. How's everything going? Fine, kid, Aizawa muttered, and Detective Tsukauchi gave him a kind smile. Is there anything you wanted to let us know? The detective asked. Ida frowned. I'm not sure, he said after a moment. As class representative, and also a friend, I'm ashamed to say I never noticed anything that was troubling Midoriya. He paused, thinking back. He was tired, he recalled. And he had been training a lot. We all have. I didn't think. It's alright, kid. Mr. Aizawa cut him off. None of us knew that Midoriya was struggling. All we can do now is look for him and while we try to piece together what exactly happened. He said gently. Is that all? Ida stood a little straighter, nodding. Oh, he then said, glancing around. I think Hagakure mentioned that she had some information for you. Mr. Aizawa looked around, spotting Hagakure walking their way. Thanks, Ida, he said while as the student bowed, stepping away. Hello, Hagakure spoke meekly as she approached the two men. You're Hagakure, yes? The detective confirmed. Why don't we go take a seat? The three of them moved to the living area, both Tsukauchi and Aizawa sitting down across from the invisible girl. How are you doing today? The detective asked. Hagakure sighed. I'm alright, she said softly. Just a little rattled. That's completely understandable. Please take all the time you need. Detective Tsukauchi spoke as he flipped to his notebook to a fresh page. Your class representative told us you had something you wanted to talk to us about. Is that correct? That's right, the girl nodded. Just about a week or two ago, I was sneaking around campus one night, practicing myself, when I noticed Midoriya. He was sitting outside on one of the benches, crying, she said. And I mean, like, full-on sobbing. Mr. Aizawa frowned as she continued. I never mentioned it to him, 'cause, like, how awkward is that, right? The girl laughed a little. I didn't want to embarrass him, but I did make sure to keep a closer eye on him after that. And, Aizawa pressed, did you notice anything? Hagakure sighed. He looked lost, she said after a moment. Like he was just kind of going through the motions, like he lost his spark. She paused. I tried to crack a joke or chat with him from time to time, and he might loosen up for a bit, but it would never last. The girl frowned. I wish I could have helped more. You did your best, Tsukauchi said softly. Midoriya is lucky to have classmates who care so much about him. Thank you for your information, Hagakure. We'll let you know if we need anything else from you, Mr. Aizawa added. The girl stood, bowing swiftly before walking away. Aizawa ran a nervous hand through his hair, glancing up at the detective's notes. Do you think we've been working them too hard? He asked slowly. Tsukauchi frowned. If that were the case, I think you would have more unhappy students on your hands. He muttered, tapping his chin in thought. Midoriya is quite driven. It's possible he overworked himself. Either way, I think there's more to play here. Miss Aizawa? A voice interrupted, As they looked up to see Jiro twirling one of her earphone jacks nervously around her finger. Aizawa smiled reassuringly at the girl, tired eyes guiding her to a seat. Yes, Jiro, what is it? Jiro swore nervously. Midoriya was always training, ever since Kamino, I think. She recalled with a frown. We started to see less and less of him on the floor. He would get back late most evenings and head straight to bed. I'm not even sure if he was eating dinner. Mr. Aizawa frowned, and Detective Tsukachi wrote something down. Did you ever say anything? I did, once, the girl nodded. A few weeks ago, maybe. It was about 30 minutes after class let out for the day, and I saw Midoriya sprinting across campus. He tripped and fell, and I helped him up, she recalled. He looked terrified. Aizawa and the detective shared a look. I tried asking him if he was okay, Jiro continued, but he just stammered out something about being late for training and that he really needed to go. She frowned. I brought it up the next day, but he was much more put together then. He told me that everything was fine, that he just mixed up his training time and that All Might was waiting for him. Tsukachi frowned. Did he say anything else? No. Jiro shook her head. He looked tired though. He didn't get back from training session until like 10 o'clock. Mr. Aizawa's brows knitted together. I thought you said you saw him right after school. The girl nodded gravely. I did. Silence fell over the space, making the air thick. After a moment, Tsukachi cleared his throat. Jiro, thank you for your time. She nodded wordlessly, leaving the men to talk. Aizawa swallowed the lump in his throat, eyes falling so. I hate this, he muttered. God, I wish I knew what that kid was thinking. I know, Tsukachi said with a frown. There was a long stretch of silence before the detective spoke again. Why don't you go try to get some rest, he suggested. I'll stick around for a bit in case anyone has anything to mention. Aizawa sighed deeply, then nodded. Yeah, alright, he muttered, moving to stand. Thanks for all your help. That night, Mr. Aizawa's brain wouldn't shut off as he got back to his room. He had long since memorized the words of Midoriya's goodbye note, and his mind played them on loop as he climbed into bed. I grew up hoping I could be a hero one day, but I've lost sight of what a hero is. Some things are too painful, even for me. Thank you for putting up with a problem child like me. President Mike stepped into the room, frowning at his husband, who was busy chewing a hole in his lower lip. You right, Sho? The man looked over, eyes glazing over as he shook his head. Mike sighed, climbing to bed and pulling Shoto into his arms. The reaction was instantaneous as Shoto burrowed his face into the crook of his husband's neck. He took a shaky breath, a few stray tears leaking out. Mike rubbed his arm comfortingly, placing a careful kiss on the man's head. It's okay, he murmured. I'm here. He should be here, Shoto whispered, shaking his head. I failed him. Mike frowned. We all did, he muttered. All we can do now is try to fix it. There was a stretch of silence before he spoke again. Do you have any leads yet? Not really, Aizawa muttered, lifting his head to speak as he shifted into a more upright position. No one's seen him yet, and the kids are all pretty much saying the same thing. What's that? Mike asked. The man sighed. He was training really hard, late nights with no breaks, tired a lot, he recalled. A few people tried confronting him about it, but he brushed it off them every time. Mike's eyebrows knitted together. You think he was overworking himself? I don't know, Shoto frowned. He's always been like that. Something must have changed recently. He paused, pondering for a moment. Jiro said she thought it's been going on since after Kamino. Mike nodded. It's possible that Bakugo's kidnapping, combined with All Might losing his power, was enough to force Midori into a cycle of overtraining in an attempt to get stronger. He muttered. Maybe it just backfired. Maybe, Shoto muttered, humming in thought. All Might's been acting strangely detached these last few days. Maybe I'll see what he has to say about all this. Chapter 5. Darkness. Then a faint ringing sound. Running water. The air thick and warm. He sat there, water running over him, ringing in his ears behind his eyes. Suddenly, hands all over him. Stop! He tried to scream, but his voice wasn't his own. He couldn't breathe, he couldn't move. The walls were closing in around him. No, he whispered, but the words couldn't come out. Deku woke to Toga leaning over his face, grinning like some goddamn Cheshire cat. He gasped, suddenly shooting up and banging his head against the girls. Shit, he muttered. Toga, what the hell? Oh good, you up? Toga cheered, seemingly undeterred by the bump to the head. Did you sleep okay? You look like you were having a bad dream. He blinked the sleep from his eyes. I was. Oh, I'm sorry, Toga muttered with a pout. Anyway, she continued after a moment, how are you feeling? You passed out pretty quickly after that bath, so I iced and wrapped your knee for you while you slept. Deku furrowed his eyebrows, lifting the blanket and glancing down at his knee. Sure enough, it was neatly wrapped, resting on a pillow. He carefully lifted the leg, shifting it slightly. The swelling seems to have gone down some. It feels a little better, he said, smiling softly. Thanks, Toga. The girl positively beamed. Of course, my darling Izuku, she sang. Oh, I also bandaged up a few scrapes and scratches I noticed. She paused, frowning a little, including... Toga trailed off, glancing downwards. Deku gulped, eyes trailing down to his leg again, this time noticing the bandages placed strategically on his inner thighs. He sat up, shifting to the side of the bed in one fluid motion. Well, thanks, he mumbled, glancing down at the floor. I'll get out of your way now. What? Toga pouted. No, don't go yet. I can't say, he muttered. I have to keep moving. The girl frowned. Why? What's your goal? Deku blinked. My goal? He paused, thinking it over. I guess for now it's just to avoid being spotted by anyone at UA. Are you kidding? Who's going to look for you here? She argued. If anything, this is probably the best place for you to hide. And well, Izuku had to admit she has a point. He pursed his lips in thought. I don't know. Please, Toga whined, draping her arms dramatically over the boy's shoulders. Besides, she muttered, don't you want this? She pulled out a chocolate chip muffin seemingly out of nowhere. Deku blinked. Where did you even get that? The girl just shrugged, and he looked at her sidelong. Did you steal it? She rolled her eyes. Do you want the muffin or not? Then the boy's stomach let out a loud growl, and he grimaced. Fine, he grumbled, swiping the muffin from my outstretched hand. I guess I could stick around for a little bit. Yay! Toga cheered as Deku bit hungrily into the muffin. Later on, Deku and Toga came down the steps, Toga somehow chatting a mile a minute about absolutely nothing. Shigaraki, Darby, and Spinner turned to look at them from their spots at the bar. Hey kid, Spinner greeted. How was your sleep? Izuku blinked. Fine, he muttered. He had a bad dream, Toga interjected. The boy gawked at her. Shut up, he hissed. Darby tutted. A bad dream, huh? Was it about your life back at UA? Tell me, he taunted. What was it that finally pushed you over the edge? Deku glared at him. I told you, it's none of your business. Relax, kid. Shigaraki spoke. His voice made the boy's skin crawl. We're on your side. You've got to trust us if we're going to work together. Deku scoffed, eyes going wide. Who said anything about working together? He shook his head. I just needed a place to crash for a bit. I'm not switching sides. Oh, come on, Shigaraki drawled. You left UA. You're fed up with Hero Society just like we are. No, he argued. No, I'm not. It's not Hero Society that's the problem. It's just one hero. He spat, immediately regretting his choice words. I mean... Darby got him off. Ah, there it is, he sang. One of your precious heroes let you down. Is that it? After all, none of you can possibly survive without each other. Deku glared at Shigaraki as Shigaraki spoke from beside him. Oh, I bet it was Eraserhead. He's the worst, the man drawled. Nah, it's gonna be alright, right? The spinner said. The boy's throat felt dry as Darby spoke. That's too obvious, he jeered. Maybe it was a classmate? Izuku swallowed thickly. Alright, he choked out. Can we please stop fucking speculating about my trauma? Darby scoffed. Oh, please, don't talk to me about trauma, he muttered. What are you even hoping to achieve, if not revenge? Deku glowered at the villain. I just had to get out of there, okay? I still want to save people, He paused. I don't want to keep getting hurt to do it. That's Hero Society, kid, Darby muttered. No one cares if you get hurt as long as you breed the results they're looking for. Izuku shook his head. Most of them aren't like that, he argued. Most of them care about their students. Most of them protect like they're supposed to. Darby just stared at the boy. Who protected you then? Darby! Toga trashed eyes, but Deku just glared, blinking back tears as he turned away from the villains. It doesn't matter, the boy said lowly, swallowing the lump in his throat as he turned back over his shoulder. I protect myself now. He turned, storming back up the steps. Chapter 6. Tensions rose with each day that Midoriya was missing. Everyone still struggling to make sense of the fact that their classmate just up and disappeared. They were all working harder than ever to combat the anxiety. That's what led to Ida paying a visit to Mei Hatsume later that week. The girl was hauled up in the support room as per usual, tinkering on one of her latest gadgets. Ah! Hatsume screamed when she saw what had become of Ida's support piece. What did you do to my baby? She cried, ripping the gadget from his hands. I'm truly sorry, Ida said with a bow. I overworked myself. It won't happen again. Hatsume paused, then shrugged. Don't sweat it, she drawled. I can fix this baby up in no time. Just don't let it happen again. Ida nodded. Thank you, Hatsume. With Midoriya missing, the whole class has been rather on edge, he said. It's nice to see that some things haven't changed. Wait, Hatsume paused, scrunching up her nose as she glanced up from her work. Did you say Midoriya was missing? The little green kid? Ida raised an eyebrow. Yes, I'm surprised you haven't heard, he muttered. He took off in the middle of the night last week. No one knows why. Hatsume frowned. That's so weird, she mumbled. I totally just helped him upgrade his suit, like, not long ago. You did? Ida gawked. Really? Uh-huh, the girl nodded vehemently. Ida swallowed thickly. Hatsume, you should report this to Miss Aizawa immediately. She cocked her head. Huh, you think? Of course, he exclaimed. He's been working with a detective, investigating Midoriya's disappearance. That kind of information could really help them. And so, later that day, Hatsume made her way to Aizawa's office, where she found him speaking to Detective Tsukauchi. Hello, she called as she tapped on the open door. Eyes locking on Tsukauchi. Are you the detective? Tsukauchi paused. I am, he confirmed, glancing alongside at Aizawa, who let out a deep sigh. This is Mei Hatsume, a support course student, he explained to the detective. She works closer with the class in designing their hero costumes. Hatsume grinned. That's right. I came here because I heard that Midori's missing, and I have some information that might help. Both men perked up at this, glancing to each other. You do? Aizawa asked. Uh-huh, she exclaimed. Midori came by a few weeks ago asking for help with a new suit. He did? The girl nodded. Yeah, geez, I don't know why everyone's so surprised, she muttered. It took a while to get everything he wanted, so he got through. That he wanted, though. I wasn't able to get it finished to him until last Friday. Aizawa and the detective shared a look. The day Midoriya left. Tsukauchi cleared his throat. Ms. Hasume, what did Midori want done to the suit? Oh, she paused, thinking for a moment. Just a couple of enhancements, some design changes. He wanted it to be darker, she said. Harder to spot. Midoriya paused. You don't happen to have designs for this new suit, do you? Of course I do, she grinned. I keep the designs of all my babies. Let me just go find it. The girl turned swiftly on her heel, running out of the room. After Hatsume brought them Deku's new design, Aizawa decided to pay a visit to All Might. He searched for a while before eventually finding him in Jingama, where he was there with Bakugo, intently watching as the boy performed rapid-fire explosions as he flew through the air. Yagi, he called, as the man startled as he glanced Aizawa's way, before putting on an easy smile. Ah, Aizawa, hello. He gave a little wave as he spoke. To what do I owe the pleasure? Aizawa narrowed his eyes at the man. I wanted to talk to you about Midoriya. Before All Might could respond, Bakugo suddenly landed beside them. He tumbled to a stop, his explosions ceasing as he began to cough. Bakugo, Aizawa yelled. Are you alright? The boy moved to stand as All Might interjected. He is fine. All Might looked skeptically at the man, shifting his gaze to Bakugo. He was clutching at his side and clearly struggling to catch his breath. Glancing between the two men, finally he muttered a small, I'm fine. All Might looked smug as the boy spoke again. Did you find Deku? Aizawa frowned. Not yet, I'm afraid. Though we did just get some new information, he muttered. Apparently Midoriya put in a request to change his costume with the support course shortly before he left. The man handed All Might the design sheets from Hatsume, gauging his reaction as Bakugo peered over his shoulder. He wanted to make himself harder to see. Bakugo frowned. All Might nodded. Probably. So he could still work while staying hidden. He speculated. May Hatsume confirmed that Midori got his new suit on the day he left. He's likely been planning this for some time. Bakugo scrounged up his nose and thought, So what now? Well, now that we know his suit looks different, we'll send out the new design to the hero agencies that have been searching for him, the man said carefully. And I've been wanting to chat with both of you about the days leading up to Midoriya's disappearance. Bakugo went to speak, but All Might cut him off. Deku was acting the same as always, he said simply. I could never anticipated his sudden departure. Aizawa narrowed his eyes at the man. And why haven't you been out searching Yagi? He asked slowly. You two are rather close after all. Obviously I'm worried about the kid, All Might said smoothly. But I have a responsibility to other students as well, including young Bakugo here. He wrapped an arm around the boy's shoulders, avoiding his gaze as he looked up at him. I believe the investigation is quite capable in you and Tsukauchi's hands. Aizawa hummed, glancing between All Might and Bakugo before carefully nodding. Alright then, he muttered, glancing at Bakugo. Is there anything else you wanted to tell me, kid? The teacher missed the way All Might's grip tightened. Bakugo swallowed thickly, shaking his head. No, sir, he muttered. If that's all, then... All Might started, but the boy cut him off. If you're still looking for info, you should talk to Tail. Aizawa frowned. You mean Ojiro? Yeah, he muttered. I heard him talking about Deku the other day. Maybe he knows something. Alright, Aizawa nodded, looking between the two once again. Thank you for your help. I'll let you know if we learn anything else. Once Aizawa left the gym, Bakugo looked up at All Might, watching his face morph into a scowl. Pathetic, he mumbled under his breath, dropping his hold on the boy. Waste of time. Bakugo frowned, furrowing his eyebrows as he looked up at the man. He went to speak, but a harsh voice cut him off, yet again. Don't think I've forgotten about you. He spat, eyes snapping towards him. Bakugo blinked. Me? Those explosions were sloppy. He snapped. You have to be faster if you hope to be the number one hero. Hey, I'm doing my best. A hand came down swiftly on the boy's cheek, silencing him instantly as his eyes blew wide in shock. If that trash is really your best, then what are we even doing here? He spat, venom in his voice. Bakugo stayed silent, breaths coming out in shallow gulps, and All Might sneered. You know, we all remember who I lost my power to try to save. Bakugo sucked in a sharp breath, tears stinging the back of his eyes. I thought with you being my new successor, you could actually break it up to me, the man muttered. But maybe you're just not cut out for it. No. His voice came out hoarse, too desperate to be thought better of. No, I am. I can do better. Bakugo choked out. I'll be better. All Might nodded once again. That's what I thought. Now let's see that again. Chapter 7. Mr. Aizawa sighed as he made his way back to the dorms. He stepped into the common room, pausing at the side of Eri, gripping tightly to Mirio's hand as they spoke to Detective Tsukauchi. At the sound of the door swinging open, the girl turned and locked eyes with the teacher's tired ones. Mr. Zawa, she called as she let go Mirio's hand, running towards the man and into his arms. He scooped her up, smiling softly as he rested her on his hip. Hey, Eri. Did you find Mr. Deku yet? She asked, blinking curiously up at the man. He frowned. Not yet. I'm sorry to say. Aizawa said gently, trying to ignore the pain on her face at the answer, but we're all working very hard to bring him back. He set her back down on the ground, giving her a little pat on the head as Mirio and Tsukauchi made their way over. Anything helpful from All Might or Bakugo? The detective asked carefully. Not really, Aizawa said with a sigh. I at least got a name of a student who might know something. It's not much to go on, though. Well, it's better than nothing, right? Mirio shouted, his usual optimistic self. I'm sure we'll find him super soon. Tsukauchi nodded. That's right, he said, glancing down at Eri. I promise we'll let you know as soon as we hear anything. With that, Mirio left with Eri, allowing the men to speak privately. So, what happened? The detectives asked slowly. Mr. Aizawa sighed. All Might seems rather occupied, making sure the other students don't fall by the wayside. He muttered with uncertainty. He's probably trying to distract himself. That makes sense, the detective agreed. It must be quite hard on him, and what about Bakugo? Aizawa frowned. He didn't say much either. He puts on a brave face, but he and Midori are close. I can imagine this has been rough on him too. Tsukauchi nodded. So, what now? You said you got another lead. It's not really a lead, Aizawa muttered. Bakugo said he heard one of his classmates talking about Midori recently. Ojiro. Ojiro? The detective repeated. The one at the tail? Aizawa nodded. That's right, he said. We should try to find him and see what he knows. Detective Tsukauchi nodded. Lead the way, then. The two made their way to Ojiro's room, Mr. Aizawa knocking purposefully on the door. Ojiro answered after a moment, eyes widening slightly. Oh, hello, he said with a cordial smile. He paused. Sorry, this is all just a bit unnerving. Aizawa gave him a reassuring smile. It's alright, kid. Can we come in? The boy opened the door further, inviting them inside. We won't take up much of your time, Tsukauchi said as they formed a small triangle in the center of the room. What can I help you with? When the old classmates mentioned they heard you talking about Midori a few days ago, Aizawa said gently, and so we thought you might have something you wanted to share with us. Ojiro blinked in surprise. Oh, yeah, right. He stammered out. Sorry about that. I was going to mention it. I just hadn't got the chance yet. Relax, kid, Tsukauchi mumbled. You're not in trouble. The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly as Aizawa cut in. That's right. We're just trying to gather as much information as possible. Right. Ojiro nodded. Well, you remember a few weeks ago, Midori fell asleep in class a few times. Tsukauchi glanced sideways at Aizawa, who swallowed thickly. Yes, I remember, he said hesitantly. I had to have a talk with him about it. Ojiro frowned, fiddling with his hands as he spoke. Well, one day in class, I glanced over and noticed he might fall asleep, he said carefully. I was going to try to get his attention or something, but before I could, he pulled a rubber band from his wrist and snapped it against his skin. What? Miss Aizawa breathed out, suddenly feeling sick to his stomach. Yeah, it seemed to wake him up a little. He must have been after you talked to him, he said. I saw him do it a few times after that. The detective frowned, placing a hand on Aizawa's shoulder. Ojiro, did you ever confront Midori about this behaviour? Ojiro frowned. No, I didn't, he confessed, hanging his head. I wanted to, but I couldn't never find the right words, and he was always so busy. I really didn't see him much outside of class anymore. And how long has that been going on? Tsukauchi pressed. The extreme busyness. The boy hummed and thought. At least a few months, probably. He said, probably since Bakugo's rescue. All Might gulped, head swirling with information. Bakugo's rescue. Kamino. All Might. Ojiro, thank you, Detective Tsukauchi said after a moment, leading Aizawa out of the room. They made it to the common room, Aizawa immediately slumping into one of the couches and burying his head in his hands. The few students who were scattered around of the room had the awareness to filter out, and Tsukauchi frowned down at the man. Aizawa, he muttered, are you all right? Aizawa couldn't bring himself to speak. He couldn't breathe. How could he have missed so much? He shook his head, squeezing his eyes shut. Do you want me to call Mike? Shoto choked on a sob, nodding minutely, and Tsukauchi stepped away. He didn't hear the man on the phone, didn't know how much time passed until he suddenly felt a warm, familiar, persistent silk slide down him. He wordlessly fell sideways into his husband's arms. I'm here, he murmured, softly against the man's hair. It's all right, Sho. He tried to speak, but his mouth felt too dry. He couldn't form words. He pinched his eyes shut tightly, shaking his head. Mike frowned, placing a careful kiss to the top of Shoto's head. It's gonna be okay, he murmured. We're gonna find him soon, alright? We can still fix this. How? He choked out, clinging to the front of Mike's shirt. The man sighed, tightening his hold on Aizawa. I don't know, he admitted. But you're not alone, he whispered. We're gonna figure this out together. It was quiet for several minutes, the only sound being the occasional sniffle. Then, carefully, the teacher nodded. He slowly lifted his head to look at Mike in the eyes fluttering shut as he wiped the man's stray tears from his cheeks. Sorry, he muttered. Mike shook his head, taking Shoto's hands into his. There's nothing to be sorry about, love, he murmured gently, resting their foreheads together. I'm right here for you, okay? I'm right here. He let out a shaky breath, nodding as he allowed himself to glance around the room. Where did Tsukauchi go? He murmured. He said he was going to go to Vlad King in Class 1B, Mike said gently. Why don't we head back to our room for the bit? He continued. I'll make us some dinner, then you can call Tsukauchi for an update, yeah? Shoto blinked up at him. God, he really loved him. Carefully, he nodded. Meanwhile, Tsukauchi had made his way up the steps of Class 1B's dorms, sighing as he shouldered the door open. Their teacher, Vlad King, was in the center of the room, a few students surrounding him. Off to the side, Netimo Monoma and Hitoshi Shinso were huddled next to each other on the couch, both peering down at one of their cell phones. Monoma glanced up, the first person to spot the detective. "Ha, the detective's here," he sang, causing a few others to look up at the man. Monoma continued. No doubt about that 1A loser who couldn't hack it as a hero, so he ran away like a... Kendo quickly crossed the room, enlarging her hand to whack Monoma, causing him to slump against Shinso's side. The girl looked up. Sorry, Shinso. Shinso just shrugged. All good, he muttered, unable to wipe the small smoke from his face. Tsukauchi, hello, Vlad said, pulling the detective's attention from the group of students. How's the investigation going? It's going, he muttered. Right now we're just trying to gather as much information as we can about the days leading up to Midoriya's disappearance. Tetsu stepped forward to them, Kendo having done the same. You mean you haven't found the boy yet? The metal boy asked him with a frown. The detective shook his head. I'm afraid not, he said softly. It's also partially why I'm here. Long story short, it's a long short, but I was thinking that someone might have seen or heard something that could help us determine what happened. Actually, a voice caught their attention, and they turned to see Shinso shifting to stand, letting Monoma gently fall against the couch. He smoothed the boy's hair from his forehead before making his way over to the detective. I may have something. Tsukauchi raised his eyebrows. Oh? He prompted. Shinso frowned, glancing around the room. Would it be okay if we discuss this in private? The detective blinked. Oh, of course, he said quickly, looking to Vlad King. All right, students, the teacher announced without prompting further. To your rooms now. If anyone has anything they would like to discuss to the detective regarding Midoriya, please come see me in the kitchen area. The class filtered out of the room, and Shinso took a seat across from Tsukauchi on the couches. Thank you, he muttered. Of course, he said, giving the boy a soft, reassuring smile. I'm sorry, I should have offered first. Shinso took a shaky breath. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with my quirk. He trailed off, posing it more as a question. Tsukauchi nodded. I know the basics. Well, the boy continued. Sometime last week, I guess it had been a few days before Midoriya left. He came up and asked me if he could ask me something about my quirk. He paused. He was constantly picking people's brains about different quirk applications, so I agreed without thinking too much of it. He muttered, causing the detective's eyebrow to furrow his eyebrows. He pulled out his notebook, flipping it open before glancing at Shinso. And what did Midoriya want to know? Shinso frowned, pausing in thought. He wanted to ask if I could use my brainwashing to make someone forget something happened to them. The detective's eyes widened slightly, and he gulped. Could you? Not permanently, he said. My power is limited. Even if I could make someone forget something like that, the delusion would still end with my hold ending on the person. So Kakashi paused, writing something down. After a moment, he looked up again. Did he say anything else? Shinso shook his head. I thought the question was odd, so I asked him if he was alright, but he got pretty dodgy after that. He paused. I told him I might be able to make him temporarily forget if I knew what the memory was he wanted to erase, but he just shut it down then. The detective frowned. What do you mean, shut down? Shinso furrowed his eyebrows, thinking back to that day. He kind of just shook his head, backing away. I tried to say something else, but he turned and ran before I could. Kakashi looked up from where he was writing, staring pensively for a moment. Then he blinked, glancing at the boy. Thank you, Shinso. Of course, he stood, and the detective followed suit. Let me know if you need anything else. Detective Tsukauchi nodded. I will. Chapter 8. The days blended into weeks, and Izuku slowly became accustomed to the life with the League, without his friends at UA. He had gotten somewhat close to Toga and Twice, and Spinner, Compress, and even Shigaraki had pretty much stayed out of his way. Darby was the only person he continued to butt heads with, but it made sense. He was pretty sure that Darby was the one that Shigaraki had asked to convince him to join the League. Deku obviously refused to budge on that matter, which meant tensions were high. The boy sighed as he stepped out the shower, toweling his hair dry before wrapping it around his waist. He moved towards the mirror, swallowing the lump in his throat as he silently judged his reflection. Suddenly, there was a sharp knock on the door, and it swung open to reveal Darby. Izuku stumbled back, eyes glowing wide. Hey, kid. Oh, sorry. He paused. I didn't know you were. Get out! Deku mumbled, cutting him off. Darby blinked. What? Get out! The boy said again, louder this time. He knew logically that danger sense hadn't gone off. He was fine. And yet, Izuku was suddenly overcome with a visceral fear, leaving his chest tight and his brain fuzzy as he struggled to catch his breath. Relax, kid, Darby said, stepping towards the boy. I just wanted to tell you. Deku gasped for air. Don't touch me, he screamed, launching back as he crossed his arms in front of his chest. Darby froze. Hey, okay, he muttered, raising his hands in silent reassurance. He raised his eyebrows as he spoke again. I'm not touching you, okay? I'm not going to touch you. I just wanted to tell you. No, Izuku yelled, squeezing his eyes shut, a few stray tears leaking out as he shook his head. Get out, get out, get out. Okay, fine. Darby relented, backing out of the room and shutting the door. After a moment, he spoke again. Shiggy wanted to talk to you about something. He called through the door. You can come down whenever you're ready. He turned, furrowing his eyebrows. As he walked down the steps, the rest of the League was waiting in the bar area. What was that about? Toga asked. Yeah, we heard yelling, Twice added. Darby huffed, but there was a genuine concern in his tone as he spoke. That kid is seriously messed up, he muttered. I walked in on him in his tail, and you would have thought I pulled a gun on him. I mean, the kid was crying, screaming at me not to touch him. Shit, Toga frowned. Seriously? There was a long pause before Compress spoke. You don't think... The man trailed off, and they all turned to see Deku slowly making his way down the steps. He hugged his arms around himself, refusing to make eye contact. Hey, kid. Darby spoke carefully. You good? I'm fine, he muttered. He just startled me, that's all. Shigaraki scoffed. If that was your startle, then I would hate to see you freaked out. Deku glared at the man, and hesitantly Darby spoke again. Seriously, kid, if something happened at UA that you want to talk about, then... Oh, really? He cut off the villain, laughing a little. So now I'm allowed to talk about my trauma? Darby frowned, no one else daring to speak. I didn't come here for a therapy session, okay? Izuku continued after a moment. I came here to get away from everything that happened, so can we please just stop fucking bringing it up? And with that, the boy turned, sobbing back upstairs. The members of the league just kind of stood there for a minute, not quite sure what to do. Then, Toga frowned, following the boy up the steps. He was lying on the fetal position on the ground, staring at the floor. He spoke without looking up. Go away, Toga. No, she argued, moving to sit on the edge of the bed, looking down at Izuku. I'm not gonna abandon you like everyone else. Izuku frowned. They didn't abandon me. I abandoned them. Toga shook her head. You didn't abandon anyone, Izuku. You had no choice but to leave. I know you care about your friends. It hurt to leave them, but it hurt less to stay. It hurt more to stay. That was really brave of you. I'm not brave. The boy shook his head. I can't even talk about what happened. Shit. I can barely even think about it without freaking out completely. Toga frowned. Will you tell me about it? Izuku blinked, eyebrows furrowing. Don't you basically already know? I don't know, she said with a shrug. You tell me. The boy was silent for a moment. And what good would that do? Well, she thought, it might feel good to get it off your chest. Plus, if you can tell me who the bastard is, then I can kill him. You probably already know that too, he said with a sigh. I don't know anything, she countered. Unless you tell me, I'm not going to make conjectures of what happened to you. Toga frowned, staring up at Izuku. But I saw the bruises the day you showed up. I see the way you're affected by this. You're hurting, Izuku. I'm tired of you pretending you're not. Izuku pinched his eyes shut. Yeah, well, watching your hero slowly become someone unrecognizable will do that to you, I guess, he muttered. And it's tough to forget when his power is so coursing through my veins. Toga sighed. So it was true. She moved wordlessly, crawling into bed beside him, hugging his arm, wrapping her arm gently around the boy. He tensed for a moment before relaxing into the touch, at last letting the tears he'd been holding in spill over. Chapter 9. Early the next morning, Izuku sought Shigaraki out when no one else was around. He slid into one of the bastles across from the villain and nodded in greeting. Sorry for disappearing yesterday, he muttered sheepishly. Shigaraki nodded, glancing sidelong at the boy. How are you feeling, kid? Fine, he muttered. He glanced down at his son, twirling on the bar. Darby said he had something he wanted to talk to me about, he questioned, a clear attempt to pivot the conversation. Shigaraki noticed this, but didn't call him out on it. I wanted to know if you would reconsider our invitation for the league, he said instead. Deki cocked an eyebrow. What do you think? Yeah, I figured. The villain muttered, scratching his neck as he spoke. But here's the thing. He paused, glancing around before leaning forward, lowering his voice slightly. I'm gonna be away for a while. Izuku blinked, eyebrows knitting together. What do you mean? I'm too weak, Shigaraki said lately. If the league is going to come out on top of all this, we have to take some drastic measures. My master has come up with a plan to achieve that. You mean all for one? The boy frowned in thought. He's still incarcerated, isn't he? Shigaraki grinned wickedly. For now, he drawled. With this surgery, I'll be faster, stronger, and more connected to Master than ever. We'll be on a totally different level. Deku gulped. Why are you telling me this? The man shrugged. Not like I have to worry about you reporting back to the heroes, he said dryly. Besides, with Kurogori already gone, I think my absence will pose some difficulties for the rest of the group. So, Deku uttered, so what does that have to do with me? Shigaraki scratched at the back of his neck. So, as much as I hate to admit it, you're exactly the kind of person they're gonna need, he argued. I know you think you're too good for vengeance, but once my upgrades are complete, and with that power of yours, we'll be unstoppable. This is a good deal for you. Izuku frowned. He stared at Shigaraki for a long moment, then spoke carefully. You know he's manipulating you, right? Shigaraki paused. What? All for one, he clarified, although he knew Shigaraki knew exactly what he meant. He isn't helping you. He is only interested in making himself stronger. He's using you, Shigaraki, to get him out of jail. The villain scratched ferociously at his neck, staring daggers into Izuku. No, he's not, he hissed. It's for the both of us. All of us. I just need to get stronger. The boy frowned. You know, it's funny, he muttered, glancing away. All Might told me the same thing. Shigaraki faltered, blinking in surprise. All Might? Surprise? Deku listened, scoffing lightly. Turns out it's really easy to be manipulated by the person you admire. He paused. I could never live up to his expectations. I would have done anything for his approval. I tried so hard and it was never enough. Why are you telling me this? It was Shigaraki's turn to ask. He stared curiously at the boy. Deku sighed. I'm just saying, if you're handing over your body to All for One in some desperate attempt to meet his impossible expectations, it won't work, he said simply. It'll never be enough. Shigaraki frowned, scratching uncomfortably beneath his collar. I'm not, he faltered. If this is for you, the boy interrupted, then by all means ruin yourself, he said with a shrug. But you're already strong, and if All for One is stuck in Tartarus, right now I say he needs you much more than you need him. He stood, turning to look at Shigaraki once again. I'm still not joining the League, he reiterated, but it's not like I have anywhere else to go. If you decide to do this, I'll be around. He turned then, heading to the door. I'm going to go out for a walk, he called over his shoulder. I'll be back later. He meandered through the back streets for a while, sticking close to the buildings as he kept an ear out for potential citizens in need of help. Midoriya! He heard a voice call out, freezing in his tracks. Someone had undoubtedly called his name. He glanced around, not immediately spotting anyone. He quickly summoned Black Whip, grabbing onto a light fixture and swinging up onto a building nearby. He ducked down, surveying the alley that was near him. He suddenly spotted a flash of yellow in the corner of his eye, turning to see Kaminari walking through the street with Sero, Shoji, Koda, and Sue. He ducked behind the wall as they passed the building, their voices continuing to ring out. Deku, where are you? Where are you? Are you there? Please come back. Midoriya! The boy choked on a sharp intake of breath, ducking further out of sight. He couldn't go back. Later that night, just after sunset, Izuku laid in his bed, staring up at the ceiling. He heard someone else come up the steps, pausing for a moment before speaking. Everything alright? Toga. I don't know, he said lowly. Another pause. The girl didn't speak, just waited. Izuku propped himself up on his elbows, glancing away as he spoke. My friends are out looking for me. And you're upset about that? Toga inferred, moving to sit on the side of the bed. The boy frowned, slowly sitting up. I miss them, he muttered, hugging his knees to his chest. None of it was their fault. There was a long pause, and Deku let out a deep sigh. I just wish I could see them, he muttered. Tell them I'm okay. Well, why don't you? The girl inquired with a blink. Deku shook his head. Are you kidding? They'll drag me back there so fast, he tutted. And then I'll be as good as dead. Toga furrowed her eyebrows, giving it some thought. Well, is there anyone out there you trust to hear you out instead of just dragging you back? Deku blinked, taking a moment to consider it. Maybe one. Chapter 10. That weekend, Uraraka was walking down the street on patrol when she turned a corner. She heard a sharp whistle and looking up from the spot. "Deku?" She froze, staring up at the boy. "Deku?" she murmured. He smiled, then leapt from the building he was on the roof of to the next one. "Hey, wait!" Uraraka yelled as she chased after the boy. "Deku!" She continued her chase, keeping her eyes on the head of green as she ran through the alleyways. She sped up, rounding a corner and freezing as she watched the boy run into an old bar. She quickly ran down the road and in the door, and she froze. There, standing in the middle of the room, was Deku and... Deku? The girl watched in horror as one of the Dekus, the one she'd been chasing, she realized, suddenly began to melt, revealing none other than Himiko Toga. "Achaku, hi!" Toga squealed and Uraraka blanched. "Deku?" She choked up, glancing between him and Toga. He smiled hesitantly. "Hey." She swallowed thickly. "Please tell me you're not working with the League." His eyes widened, and the boy shook his head animatedly. "Oh, God, no!" He rushed out, and Uraraka relaxed, if only slightly. "It's not like that. This was just the only way I could think of getting you here." "Deku?" The girl suddenly surged forward, enveloping him in a breathtaking hug. He hugged back, tears pricking in his eyes. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she hissed, then pulling back to look at the boy. "Uraraka, He frowned at the tears gathering in her eyes. "Do you have any idea how worried I was? How worried we all been?" I know. She cut him off. "And you've been here chumming it up with the people who we're supposed to be fighting against?" Deku shook his head. "They're not our enemies. All for One is the one to blame." He paused. "And anyway, they've just been giving you a place to crash." "Then why did you leave, Izuku?" she begged, tears beginning to spill down her cheeks. He frowned, swallowing a lump in his throat. "I had to," he choked out. "I'm sorry, I can't explain it." "Why not?" she cried, her voice raising in frustration. "I just can't," he whined. "You have to trust me. When I tell you it's better this way. Please." She sobbed. "Then why am I here?" she hissed, voice wobbling. Why did you have her lead me back here if you weren't going to come back?" Deku frowned. "'Cause I wanted to see you. Because I wanted you to know I'm safe," he whispered, tears lining his eyes. "And I was hoping you could let Shoto know too." "Todoroki?" she asked hesitantly. "You want me to tell him you're here?" No," the boy stammered out, shaking his head. "Just that I'm safe. That I'm sorry." Uraraka frowned. "And you don't want me to tell anyone else?" Deku shook his head as she spoke. "Not Bakugo or Misazawa or even All Might?" Deku made a face, then something akin to a scowl, but darker, more fearful. "No," he said after a moment. "Definitely not." "Deku, you should go," he said, and Uraraka blinked. "You're on patrol, right? They'll start to worry if they don't hear from you soon." Then, as if hammering the point home, the girl's walkie-talkie suddenly went off. "Uravity, do you copy? Where do you go?" She sat up at Deku as she picked it up, and Deku stared back at her with pleading eyes. "Uravity here. Sorry about that." She spoke into the walkie-talkie. "I was on pursuit of a subject, but I lost them," she murmured. "I'll be back soon." Izuku gulped as she pocketed the device. "Thank you," he muttered. She paused, taking a shaky breath. "Just be safe." The boy nodded, pulling her into a tight hug. "I will." After a moment, Uraraka pulled away, and Izuku turned to look at Toga. "Toga, make sure she gets back safe, alright?" "Sure thing, Izuku," the boy sang, enunciating each syllable of his name. Uraraka scoffed. "I can get there myself, thank you." Toga just grinned. "Sorry, Choco. Zuko's in charge today." Uraraka glared, turning for the door, Toga trailing right behind her. They walked in silence for several minutes before Uraraka's now timid voice suddenly sounded. Do you know what happened? I do, Toga said simply. It took a while, but yeah, he told me. Otaku frowned. And you won't tell me? It's not really my place. The girl hummed. You've got a pretty strict moral code for a villain. Wow, way to cut deep. Toga laughed, and Uraraka couldn't help but chuckle at the chuckle that spilled from her lips as they rounded the corner, stopping as they suddenly came face to face with Sue. The girl blinked, cocking her head to the side as she glanced between Otaku and Toga. Before any words could be exchanged, Toga quickly leapt back, ducking between two buildings and out of sight. Choco? Sue uttered after a moment. What was that? She gulped. Oh my god, Sue! Toga totally snuck up on me, she stammered out. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up. Sue furrowed her eyebrows. It seemed like you were fine, actually, she muttered. Did she even have a knife? Well, she did. Uraraka's voice came out much louder than she meant it to. It was a small one, down by my side. I wasn't fast enough to get away. The frog hero hummed. Aren't you good at close combat, though? She questioned. And Toga short fled quickly for someone who had so much confidence. It's odd, don't you think? Otaku blanched. Oh, well, I guess she figured other heroes might be close by and wanted to be avoided being outnumbered. There was a long stretch where neither girl spoke. Sue knew Otaku was lying. Otaku knew Sue knew that she was lying. But Sue simply nodded, turning towards the street. We better get back soon, she said carefully. Ryuku and Najiro are there for us. Right. Uraraka nodded, falling into step beside her friend. Shoto was lying in bed, staring up at the ceiling. He thought back to the night before Izuku left, before his world shifted on its axis. Shoto was awakened by a soft but persistent knock on his bedroom door, and he furrowed his brows, shifting to stand and make his way across the room to answer. Before he knew what was happening, Midoriya suddenly stepped inside, grabbing the boy's face and pulling him into a hurried kiss. Shoto stumbled back, hands subconsciously making their way to his waist as he blinked in shock. He pulled back slightly, looking at Izuku with wild eyes. He stared at Shoto pleadingly, and then they were kissing again, stepping backwards, falling back onto the bed. Shoto woke up the next morning to an empty bed, Midoriya having disappeared without a trace, and he couldn't help that he could have done something to drive the boy away. There was a soft knock on his door, and Shoto stirred from his thoughts, feeling a grim sense of deja vu. As he moved slowly to stand, there was another knock on the door, and as he was walking to the door, and he frowned as he swung it open. Uraraka. The boy looked incredibly anxious, and she looked around the hallway before leaning in towards him, voice dropping into a whisper. We need to talk. He blinked, moving to the side and ushered her inside. What's going on? He asked, once the door had closed, leaving the two of them alone. She took a shaky breath, glancing up at him. I saw Deku today. Todoroki froze. What? Where? She frowned. I can't tell you that. The boy blinked. What do you mean you can't tell me? Listen, okay, I'm still trying to make sense of this all myself, she muttered. So, I was on patrol when I looked up and saw Deku, right? So, obviously I chased him after him, but when I caught after him, it wasn't really him. It was Himiko Toga. Todoroki's eyes widened. Toga? Yeah, but get this, Uraraka said with a nod. She was leading me to the real Deku. Apparently he'd been staying with the League. Of villains? The girl stuttered. What other league would I be talking about? Shoto frowned. I'm confused. Does this mean he betrayed us? Uraraka shook her head. I don't think so. He said they're just giving him a place to stay. She paused. Though he did say they're not our enemies. It was pretty weird, but he seems to be genuinely sad about the situation. So, why did he leave? He wouldn't tell me, she said with a frown. He just wanted me to let you know that he was safe and wanted to tell you that he's sorry. Shoto blinked. Me? The girl nodded. You specifically. I thought it was weird that he didn't want me to tell Bakugo or my only one. There was a brief pause and Shoto frowned. I want to see him, he said after a moment of contemplation. Uraraka frowned. I know how you feel, but... No, the boy cut her off. I want you to take me to him. You got to see him. I want to see him too. I need to talk to him. I know, but you can't. Uraraka reiterated. Deku only wanted me to tell you that he's safe. I'm not even sure I was supposed to mention the league. He doesn't want anyone else knowing where he is. Todoroki's eyes sung with tears as he glanced away. He didn't dare speak. Uraraka frowned. Todoroki, I know you miss him. We all do, she said gently. He's safe for now. But this is still the League of Villains we're talking about. Besides, if I break his trust, he might flee to some other place, and we'd never see him again. We have to tread here lightly. He swallowed thickly, still not trusting his voice. It wasn't fair. Why did Izuku seek her out instead of him? Why didn't he want to see him? What did he do wrong? Please, Todoroki, the girl pressed. Please just keep this between us for now. I promise I'll tell you if I hear anything else, okay? Fine, Shoto choked out, but he didn't feel fine. Chapter 11. Izuku was sitting at the bar, taking some notes on a fight he had earlier with a villain, when Spinner approached him. What did you say to him? The boy furrowed his eyebrows and looked up at the lizard. What? I've been trying to convince Shigaraki not to hand his body over to the doctor for the better half of a month, and you did it in one conversation, he said, his tone only slightly bitter. Deku blinked, eyes widening a fraction. He is not going through with it? Spinner shook his head. He says he's not sure yet, but he's questioning it a lot more than he was before. I only told him the truth, the boy said softly after a moment. All for One needs him, not the other way around. The villain rolled his eyes. Right, because you know so much about All for One. I'd probably know more than you think, Deku said softly, pausing for a moment. Anyway, I know a thing about shitty mentors. Spinner blinked. Ah, right, he muttered. So I was right, then, about All Might? Deku just nodded, a faraway look in his eyes, and there was another long stretch of silence before the villain spoke again. Well, sorry to hear that. Deku shrugged a little, swallowing the lump in his throat. Yeah, sure, he muttered. I'm just glad Shigaraki is sticking to his... Do you still think you'll stay then? The lizard questioned after a moment, and Deku furrowed his eyebrows at him. Spinner shrugged. I know he wanted you around if he wasn't going to be away for that long, he clarified. But if he doesn't do that, he trailed off. What does that mean for you? Deku frowned, thinking for a moment, then offering a weak shrug. It's not like I have anywhere else to go, he said quietly, and Spinner nodded once. Well, Toga's been enjoying having you here, he said, and Deku glanced up at this. No one's going to force you to leave. I know villainy isn't on your radar, but after everything that's happened, maybe you can help us take down All Might once and for all. The boy swallowed thickly, a frown etched onto his face. I don't know. I still just kind of want to forget about the whole thing. Move on. There was a long pause as Spinner surveyed the boy. He frowned as he spoke. You can either forget about it, or you can move on, he said gravely, and Izuku blinked as he processed the villain's words. There'll be power in remembering. There's power in remembering. You'll do well to know that. And Deku knew, on some level, that he was right, but it was much easier said than done. to acknowledge those memories than to live them. How was he supposed to reckon with everything he'd gained and everything he'd lost? Everything he thought he knew, just to learn how he really knew nothing at all. How was he supposed to move past it when it was all he could do to think about it? He sighed as he made his way up to the roof of the building, hoping to take some time to clear his head. He leaned up against the rooftop's edge, resting on the concrete as he looked over the horizon. After a few minutes of this, he heard the door of the rooftop squeak open, and the air shifted slightly as he heard someone's presence behind him. Then, completely deadpanned, "Don't jump. It's not worth it." Darby, Izuku huffed a little, keeping his eyes trained ahead as he spoke. "I'm just thinking." There was a brief pause, and he felt the villain come up beside him. After a moment, the boy spoke again. "How do you live with it?" He spared up a glance, noting the way Darby's eyebrow furrowed as he met his gaze. "Yeah, you're gonna have to be a bit more specific." "Remembering," Izuku clarified, as if that cleared up everything, but he kept going. "Everything that happened, or didn't, how nothing worked out the way you wanted." He paused, swallowing as he blinked back tears. "How do you move forward when all you can do is look back?" He didn't make eye contact, but he could feel the villain's eyes boring into the side of his head nonetheless. "Damn, kid," he drawled in his usual cocky way. "What am I, your therapist now?" Izuku huffed, rolling his eyes a little as he looked off to the side. "I don't know why I bothered," he muttered. There was a long, stretched-out silence, and the boy thought Darby would walk away, but after another moment he spoke again. "You're thinking about this all wrong," he said carefully, earning a tentative glance from the younger hero. "It's not about remembering or forgetting. You just gotta live for yourself. No one else is gonna do that for you." "Live?" Izuku blinked, sitting with that for a moment. Darby sighed, pulling out a cigarette and tucking it between his lips. "A novel concept, I know," he said dryly, turning to lean up against the wall as he lit it up and took a slow drag. "The way I see it, the world's going to keep turning whether you smile or cry." He paused, watching the boy from the corner of his eye. "So why not smile?" And at that, well, Izuku couldn't help but grin a little. Chapter 12. Sue kept a close eye on Ochako over the next couple of days, watching her from a distance and trying to eavesdrop on her conversations. This was not helped by the fact that Todoroki was coming up to her every other day, trying to convince her to take him to see Midoriya, or just asking if she'd heard from the League. "Todoroki," she whispered shouted one day after what must have been the 5th time of him asking. "You have to stop," she whispered. "Someone could hear you." Shoto frowned. "I don't understand why you won't just take me to see him." Uraraka growled at the boy. "I told you I can't," she said with exasperation. "Please, just wait a little longer, please." Meanwhile, Twice and Darby were finishing their weekly meeting with Hawks for the Paranormal Liberation Front. "I'll see you guys later then," Twice said as he moved towards the door. "Oh, Twice," Darby added offhandedly as the man was getting ready to leave. "Make sure to grab some more snacks and shit on your way back to base. The kid's been eating us out of house and home." Twice inhaled sharply as Hawks' ears picked up. "What kid?" "Oh, come on," the bird drawled out casually, but his eyes sparkled with recognition. "Don't tell me the League's been holding out a new recruit on me." Darby scoffed. "Hardly," he muttered. "I've been trying to convince him for weeks now, but he just won't bite." "Weeks? Could it be?" Hawks narrowed his eyes. "And why do you keep this kid around if he refuses to join you?" "Darby," Twice muttered. "I don't think you should." Darby cut him off. "Oh, relax, it's just a birdie," he lilted, giving Hawks a knowing glance. "You trust him, right?" Twice stayed silent, and Darby took the opportunity and kept going. "Honestly, we're glorified babysitters at this point," he said. The kid was basically a stray, scared and alone, until Twice brought him off the street. I'd say he simply has nowhere, and he wishes to return to. He paused, and Toga's grown quite fond of him, so the villain trailed off, giving Hawks a little shrug. There was a long stretch of silence as the two men stared at each other, Twice standing awkwardly at the doorframe. Then Hawks smiled. "Careful," he teased. If you keep taking in troubled youth for no alternative motive, people might start mistaking you for the good guys." Darby crooked an eyebrow. "And where would that leave you, number 2? Mr. Aizawa sat at his desk when his phone rang. He had given his class a free period, and he had his head resting against his arm on the desk. He picked up the phone with the other hand, answering it without bothering to check the caller ID. "Hello?" "Aizawa," the voice said on the other end, slightly out of breath. "It's Hawks." The man furrowed his eyebrows. "Yes, what is it?" There was a bit of shuffling on the other end, then the voice came through again. "I think I may have found Midoriya." "What?" Aizawa gasped, immediately sitting up. "Where is he?" This, unfortunately, garnered the attention of the class, and they immediately began bombarding their teacher with questions. "What's going on? Is this about Midoriya? Who is it? Where is he?" Aizawa slammed his hand on the desk, immediately silencing the room. "Sorry, say that again." "Okay, so I don't know for sure," Hawk said carefully, "but I think he might be with the League of Villains." The teacher's eyes went wide. "The League of Villains?" Pandemonium again broke out among the students, once more demanding answers. As Mr. Aizawa shot the class a deadly glance, successfully silencing them yet again. Hawks' voice filtered through the phone. I had a meeting with Darby as part of my undercover work. He let it slip that they had a kids' stay agreement for the past couple of weeks now. Aizawa narrowed his eyebrows. "What do you mean, staying with them?" "They claimed he was there willingly," Hawks explained, "though their attempts to recruit him have remained unsuccessful." "They've been attempting to recruit him?" He held up a finger to the class, silently stopping them from interrupting his conversation for a third time. Hawks cleared his throat. "I don't think we have to worry about that part," he said. "Deck is not the kind of kid that would turn on us like that. His problem is that he still has no interest in coming back to UA." Miss Aizawa frowned. "And why is that?" "I don't know," Hawks muttered. "But if we can take what Darby is saying at face value, then it seems like the League is currently giving him a safe place to hide so no one from UA can find him and bring him back." The man let out a deep sigh, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Alright, can you meet me at the school?" he muttered. "I'd like to run this all by Nezu, as well as Detective Tsukauchi." "Already on the way." Mr. Aizawa sighed, hanging up the phone. He looked out at his class, who were all sitting on the edge of their seats. "Well?" Kaminari was the first to ask. "There's a good chance Midoriya has made contact with the League of Villains, and is currently residing at their base of operations," he said gravely, ignoring the students' panicked expressions. "If we can trust our intel, then he is not there against his will, but rather a guest of sorts. They've been attempting to recruit him, but they obviously have been unsuccessful." "Why is he not joining them? If he's not joining them, why is he still there?" Kirishima blurted out. "Yeah, and if we know where he is, why don't we just get him?" Mr. Aizawa frowned. "Unfortunately, I don't know anything else regarding Midoriya's situation, but what he may be thinking," he said, "as if we're going after him, we unfortunately don't know where the League of Villains base is located at this time. However, if we're able to confirm his location, then all of our resources will go out to finding out where the base is and bringing Midoriya home. After Aizawa dismissed the class for the day, Sue immediately made her way across the room to Uraraka. She made sure that the other students were mostly filtered out before speaking lowly. "You saw him, didn't you, Ribbit?" she murmured. "You know where he is." "Huh?" Uraraka blanched, glancing around the room, desperate to look anywhere but the other girl's eyes. "What are you talking about, Sue?" Sue frowned. "Come on," she muttered, taking Ochako by the wrist. She led her out of the room as they walked in silence back to the dorms. They made their way to Uraraka's room, Sue closing the door behind them before turning once again to face the nervous girl. "I've been slowly figuring it out," she said, lowly. "Ever since I saw you with Tiger, I knew there was something you weren't telling me. I couldn't understand why you looked so relaxed with her. I didn't get it." "Sue, The girl shook her head, cutting Uraraka off. "But then I heard what Miss Aizawa said today. Midoriya sang with the League of Villains," she said, and suddenly it all made sense. "The reason you were going to with Tiger is because she took you to see Midoriya, didn't she?" Ochako stared at her friend with big eyes, eventually letting out a shaky sigh. "Yeah," she muttered. "She did." Sue frowned. "Why haven't you reported this to Miss Aizawa if you know where he's been, then?" "'Cause he begged me not to," Uraraka cut her off. "He feels safer where he is right now, and even though I can't fathom why, he asked me to respect that." The girl blinked. "I want to see him." Ochako frowned. "Sue, you can't." "You know where he is," Sue cut her off. "You can take me to him." "I can't," Uraraka said once again. "He only wanted me to know he was safe. I was only supposed to tell one other person. I can't." "Take me to him." Sue cut off again. "Well, tell Miss Aizawa what you know." Otaku's eyes widened. "Sue..." The door to her room suddenly swung open, revealing Todoroki standing there. "If you're taking her, you're taking me too." "Todoroki, what the hell?" Uraraka gasped as he stepped into the room, shutting the door behind him. "I've been asking to go see him for days," Todoroki said matter-of-factly. "If she gets to go, then I'm coming with." Uraraka let out a deep sigh. "Fine, we'll go tomorrow," she said with resignation. "But we have to be careful. If we mess this up, we could never see Deku again." Chapter 13. The next day after school, Uraraka, Shoto, and Sue left to go to the base of the League of Villains. Uraraka led them carefully through the streets, checking once in a while to make sure they weren't being followed. After about 30 minutes, the three students finally turned onto the street of the rundown bar. "Here it is," Ochako whispered, gesturing to the bar with her head. The other two looked alongside at the building. There were no other people around outside. She took a deep breath. "Alright, we have to be careful about this. Let's..." She turned to see Todoroki running, already halfway to the bar. "Todoroki, stop!" The girl whisper shouted, running after him, Sue trailing behind her. They followed him into the bar, too late to stop him. "Midoriya!" Shoto shouted, barging through the front door. Several League members were scattered around the room, and they yelled as the kids stormed in. "What the fuck?" Shigaraki hissed. "Where's Midoriya?" Shoto asked, moving through the room as if he wasn't breaking into the League of Villains' secret hideout. "Midoriya!" he called out again. Darby looked at the boy with bewilderment. "You can't just barrage in here!" he screeched. Uraraka blanched. "I know, I'm sorry," she stammered out. "I tried to tell him, She was cut off once again by Shoto yelling, "Midoriya!" "Shoto?" A small voice stopped him in his tracks, Izuku and Toga making their way down the stairs. Shoto immediately surged forward, wrapping his arms around the boy before he even reached the bottom step, enveloping him in a bone-crushing hug. Izuku tensed for a moment before melting into the touch, wrapping his arms around the other's waist. "Ochako! Sue!" He heard Toga call excitedly from behind him. Izuku's eyes snapped up, and he pulled himself from Shoto's grip, cheeks heating up from the number of stares from the league members. He glanced hesitantly between the two girls. What are you doing? What are you guys doing here?" Uraraka frowned, taking a step forward. "I'm sorry for showing up like this," she muttered sheepishly. "We were supposed to wait outside for someone to come outside so I could explain things rationally," the girl said pointedly. She was glaring at Shoto, who was too busy looking at Izuku to notice. "But there's something important we need to tell you." Midoriya frowned. "What's going on?" "Aizawa knows you're staying with the League of Villains," she said carefully. "What?" Izuku paled, eyes widening in fear. "How did he find out?" Uraraka frowned. "Someone called him during class yesterday. I'm not sure." "Wait," a voice interjected as they glanced towards Darby. Around what time did he get this call?" Sue furrowed her eyebrows. In the silence stretching on for a moment before she spoke. I think it was probably around 2:30, Ribbit," she muttered awkwardly. Darby glanced sideways at twice, giving him a dangerous look. "Hear that?" he drawled. "Sounds like our birdie turned out to be a light after all." Izuku frowned. "What are you guys talking about?" "Oh, you know, Hawks, the number 2 hero," the villain linted. He's an informant of mine. I always had a feeling he was acting as a spy. I let it slip yesterday that we had a kid hanging around lately. It seems like it made its way through the grapevine." He smirked. "Guess I was right." Izuku glared at the villain. "So you told a pro hero who you knew was most likely reporting back to UA that I'm here?" Darby rolled his eyes. "Relax, kid. I never even used your name," he said somewhat defensively. "The bastard just assumed." "You're an asshole." Deku spat, and Darby just shrugged. The boy let out a deep sigh, turning back towards Uraraka. "So what now?" he asked hesitantly. "Are they coming after me?" "Well, good news is that they don't know where the base is located yet," she said carefully, "so they can't do anything until they figure that out." Sue frowned. "I still don't get it, Ribbit," she muttered, glancing at Izuku. "Why won't you come back?" Izuku swallowed thickly, taking a step towards the girl. I'm sorry, Sue," he said lowly. "You're just gonna have to trust me when I say it's better you don't know." "Why?" she pressed. "Everyone's been worried, Midoriya. Even All Might said." Boy squeezed his eyes shut, shaking his head, and Toga's voice cut him off. "I think that's enough for one day," she said sweetly. "Why don't I walk you guys out?" The girls frowned, and Shoto's eyes grew wide as the girl began to lead them away. He turned quickly on his heels, gripping Izuku's wrists loosely in his hands as he pulled him back to the side. "Please come back," he muttered, staring pleadingly into the boy's eyes. "Please." Izuku frowned. "Todoroki, I can't." "Why not?" he begged, and Izuku's heart broke. He wanted nothing more than to be back with his friends. Things just weren't that simple. "I just can't," he whispered, eyes pinching shut. "Please, Sho, just trust me." Shoto frowned. "But..." "Hey, kid." A voice cut them off, and Deku's eyes snapped open. He said no. Shoto looked up, eyes looking with the villain, Darby. He went to respond with some kind of quip, but faltered, giving the man a strange look. "What?" he muttered. Nothing, you just..." Shoto blinked, paused, blinking in thought. "Never mind, sorry." He held the villain's gaze for a moment longer before ripping it away. looking back to Midoriya, his voice dropping into a whisper. Did I do something wrong? Izuku's eyes widened. God, no, show. He frowned, pulling the boy into another hug. I promise it had nothing to do with you, he murmured into Shoto's ear. Shoto's eyes fell shut, and he sucked his head back into the other boy's neck. Then why? He whimpered. He shook his head. I can't tell you. Just, please, just trust me. He pulled back, looking into Shoto's eyes. We'll talk soon, okay? I'll just need you to help keep me updated on US investigations. Izuku, He cut himself off, letting out a sigh. He knew he wasn't going to change the boy's mind right now. Slowly, carefully, he nodded. Fine, he muttered. Soon. Izuku gave him a small smile, squeezing his hands in his, and before hesitantly dropping them. Shoto frowned before turning to head towards the door. If you plan on coming back, Darby called out as the kids were leaving. Fucking knock next time, yeah? Shoto shot the villain one last glare, sparing one last glance at Izuku before the door fell shut behind them. Well, that was fun! Toga's ever-cheerful voice cut through the tension, and Izuku let out a deep sigh, pinching the bridge of his nose in frustration. So, what's the deal between you and Halfsies? The girl continued, teasing lowly. He was like super into you. Did you guys do it? Izuku squawked, turning bright red. He covered his face with his hands, and as he heard someone literally dry heave from across the room. Nope. Darby turned immediately on his heels, making a beeline for the nearest exit. I refuse to be part of this conversation. Toga blinked. Weirdo, she muttered, grabbing Deku by the wrist and tugging him up the steps to knee-sit together on the bed. Her grin stretched all the way across her face as she spoke. Come on, spill! The boy swallowed thickly, still beet red as he waved his hands in front of him. But really, Toga, there's nothing to tell. I mean, we're just friends. We didn't even... Toga raised her eyebrows, knowingly, as he trailed off, exhaling shakily. He glanced away as he spoke. Okay, so we kissed, he muttered shyly. I knew it, she squealed, taking his hands into hers and shaking him excitedly. Oh my god, I so called it, she cheered. He was like giving you major hard eyes. Jacob's blush only deepened. I don't know, I mean, after everything that's happened, I doubt he'll want me anyway. The girl looked at him like he had two heads. Zuku, he literally forced his way into our secret hideout and begged you to come back with him. I mean, what other explanation could there possibly be for that? He swallowed thickly, glancing down at his lap. I mean, I kind of kissed and ran, he muttered. That night, it was the night you left? She completed his thought, eyes wide. Izuku, why? I didn't think he would. I mean, He paused, taking a steadying breath. I just had to do it once. I thought he'd pull away. I thought I'd get it out of my system, and I could leave everything and not have to worry about making things awkward. He pinched his eyes shut. I mean, I'd been planning for weeks. I couldn't just say. I couldn't, he sobbed. Toga frowned and pulled the boy into her arms. Chapter 14. Bakugo's body was on fire as he walked across the campus after a long evening of training. Everything hurt, and all he wanted to do was go back to his dorm and collapse into bed. He made his way carefully up the stairs, wincing slightly at each step. He shouldered open the door to the common room, paused when he locked eyes with Kirishima. The rest of the class had long since gone to bed, but the redhead was sitting forward on the couch, resting his arms on his knees as he stared up at Bakugo. What? Bakugo barked out. Dude, where have you been? Kirishima asked it with a frown. It wasn't accusatory, and it wasn't just curious either. It was pure concern. Bakugo knitted his eyebrows together. Training, obviously. A pause. Cats? It's almost midnight. So? Kirishima frowned deeply. So you've been training a lot lately, he said gently. Are you sure you're not overworking yourself? Bakugo growled at the lower boy. Tuh, I'm fine, he mumbles. Don't ask stupid questions. Cat, Oh my god, shut up! He snapped, and Kirishima actually froze. I said I'm fine, shitty hair, so just leave me the fuck alone. The last words caught in his throat, and he took a shaky breath, looking off to the side. Tears stung the backs of his eyes, but he blinked them away. I didn't, he sighed, but his eyes fell shut, and he shook his head. Any words he wanted to say dying on his lips. I'm going to bed, he croaked out. Sparing a quick glance at the other boy, the raw hurt on his face killed Bakugo, but he shoved that down too, turning away and walking down the hall towards his room. Kirishima sighed. He wasn't stupid, he knew something was wrong. Adrian knew Katsuki was in like the back of his hand, a calm familiarity that has only grown since Kamino. But lately, it was like he had been moving backwards, always just out of reach. It started the first day he talked back to All Might, just a few days after Deku left. So, what did All Might want? Kirishima asked casually as Bakugo slid in beside him at their lunch table. Sarah and Kaminari were seated across from them, engrossed in their own little conversation about some internet meme. The blonde stared down at his tray, lost in thought. Dude, you good? Bakugo blinked, glancing up. What? Kirishima furrowed his eyebrows. I was asking about the talk of All Might. He repeated carefully. Did he say anything about Deku? Oh, Bakugo grumbled, letting the silence stretch out for another moment before speaking again. No, not really, he muttered. He wants to train me. He then picks up a fry from his tray, popping it into his mouth. Whoa, wait! Sarah perked up, attention apparently peaked. You're getting private training sessions with All Might? Kaminari blinked, eyes widening as he looked over to Bakugo. Oh man, that's so lucky, dude! Katsuki just grunted a little, picking up another fry in an effort to avoid Kirishima's furrowed gaze. Isn't that a little weird? He asked gently. Bakugo furrowed on his own eyebrows, staring down at his tray as if it were the one speaking. No, he muttered. Why the hell would it be? I mean, Deku just went missing, you know. He paused, thinking of his next words carefully. I just thought without his powers, he might want to focus his attention for looking for... A harsh slam on the table froze the boy in his tracks, and Bakugo looked up at him with anger in his eyes. He didn't go missing. He fucking left. He ran like the quitter because that's what he does when things get too hard. Kirishima blinked, eyes widening a fraction. He went to speak, but Sarah's voice cut him off. Whoa, man, chill. Kirishima watched as the way he shifted his glare to the other boy, swallowing thickly. Then, all at once, he pushed back, moving to stand. I don't have to deal with this shit, he grumbled. Fucking interrogation. He grabbed onto his tray, stalking off into the distance. At first, Kirishima chalked it up to Deku's disappearance. The two had made a lot of progress in their relationship lately, and Katsuki didn't have to say the words for Kirishima to know he felt betrayed. But as time went on, Adro couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this. He stopped hanging out on the floor altogether. Katsuki was never the most social member of Class 1A, but now whenever classes let out each afternoon, he'd head straight for the training gym. Before, he took pride in cooking dinner each night, but now he's lucky if he even made it back for dinner at all. Then he started wearing long sleeves. Aren't you hot like that? He asked one night when it was just them, barely masked concern behind the casual facade. Bakugo scowled. If I was hot, I wouldn't be fucking wearing it. Kirishima frowned. Katsuki, he said lowly, carefully. The blonde winced at the sound of his name. If something's going on, you know I'm here. He muttered. I'm right here, if you want to talk about it, I mean. I'm fine, Katsuki snapped. I don't need to fucking talk. We don't have time to talk. Deku's gone and the war's still coming. Whether we're prepared for it or not, so we need to be prepared, he hissed. And Kirishima swallowed thickly as he watched the boy slowly unravel in front of him. So either start pulling your damn weight and get ready, or stay out of my way and don't slow me down. Kirishima's eyes slipped sharp, a few tears leaking out and spilling down his cheeks. He realized two things as he sat there. Bakugo's harsh words were ringing in his ears. He knew he didn't mean them. That wasn't even a question. He knew Katsuki better than anyone, and he realized now that he was going through something serious, something that he couldn't bring himself to admit to himself, let alone anyone else. As he sat there, trying and failing to fit the puzzle pieces together, he realized that he would do whatever it took. He would do anything for Katsuki, because Edre loved Katsuki more than life himself. Chapter 15. The next day, Darby had another meeting with Hawks. We need to talk about the kid, Hawks said, skipping the usual pleasantries as he approached the villain. Darby raised an eyebrow. Well, hello to you too, traitor. Hawks pouted. I'm not a traitor, he said lowly, but the people of UA are worried, and I still do have an obligation. We're prepared to make a deal in exchange for Midoriya's safe return. Darby laughed a little. I already told you, Birdie. The kid's not a hostage. He crossed his arms, looking up at the hero up and down. Deku is free to leave whenever he wants. He just doesn't want to. And why is that? Hawks pressed. You already told me he refuses to join that little group of yours. So what exactly is keeping him there? The villain smiled devilishly. It's quite simple, really, he drawled. The kid's terrified you're going to drag him back to that place. He stays to avoid to be found. Hawks frowned. What was happening to Deku at UA? He asked slowly. Darby tutted, arms still crossed. As much as I would like to be the bearer of unfortunate news, it's really not my information to share. Oh, come on, Hawks huffed, tapping his foot impatiently. Don't grow a moral compass now. You see, that's a problem with you heroes. Darby glared at the man. You think anyone who's not on your side is some kind of a more serpent. Newsflash, Birdie. We're not the ones who drove away your precious Deku. He spat. And if you want answers, talk to the bastard who did. There was a long stretch of silence. Hawks' eyes darkened as he spoke. And who would that be? Hawks blinked, glancing away. I said too much. No, like always, you fucking haven't said enough, the bird hissed, feathers ruffling in annoyance. Whatever, Darby muttered. I'm done talking about this. If you want the kid back, you'll have to find out where he is first. In the meantime, you can all bite me. There was a pause, and Hawks furrowed his eyebrows for a minute. Wait a minute, he muttered. How do you know I've been in contact with UA? The villain raised an eyebrow. What's that now? When I got here, you immediately called me out, he realized. You knew as soon as I spoke with the school about Midoriya. How? Darby smirked. I got handed to you, Birdie. You're sharp, he teased. But honestly, did you really think Deku hadn't been in touch with any of his friends? Hawks' eyes widened, and Darby just laughed. Now get out of here. He spoke, voice dripping with disdain. Go tell your precious heroes that if they want the kid back, they're going to have to fight for him. Hawks played the recording of their conversation for the room, sitting across from Detective Sakauchi and Miss Aizawa. Principal Nezu was perched on the latter's man's shoulder, frowning down at the recording tape. So, what do you make of it? The principal asked the detective. Detective Sakauchi sighed. Well, if we can trust what the villain is saying, Then it sounds like someone at UA was responsible for driving away Midoriya. Aizawa frowned, but Darby's right. We have no leads on his location. We have no way of learning what happened, much less convincing Midoriya to return. That is true, Principal Nezu spoke behind the man's ear. But, however, something else that you said interests me. He paused. Do you really think it's true that the boy's been in contact with somebody in his class? The teacher pondered for a moment. I find it hard to believe that anyone would make contact with him and not inform me or someone else. He thought out loud. That being said, Midoriya can be quite convincing. If he told them not to say anything, then the man trailed off. So that's how Todoroki, Ida, Uraraka, and Sue ended up seated nervously in the principal's office. Mr. Aizawa was staring at them from across the desk. Nezu and Takashi had stepped outside to give them some space. The teacher cleared his throat. I'll get straight to the point, Aizawa said, successfully spiking the heart rates of all 4 students. We've had word that Midoriya's been in contact with one or more of his classmates since his disappearance. As some as Midoriya's closest friends, I was wondering if there was anything you wanted to tell me. Uraraka gulped, glancing alongside at the others. They all shared her look of alarm, with the exception of Ida, who simply looked shocked. That is preposterous, he exclaimed, waving his arms as he spoke. Every single member of Class 1A has been worried sick about Midoriya. How dare you accuse us of... Mr. Aizawa raised a hand, silencing the class representative. I'm not accusing you of anything either, he said gently. So I'm simply trying to get to the bottom of this. He paused, glancing between the other 3. And if any one of you have happened to see Midoriya, well, I promise you won't be in trouble if you share anything with me today. The students glanced between each other as Ida let out a sigh of relief. Right, I apologize for the outburst, sir, he muttered. I assure you I have not seen or heard of Midoriya since the night of his disappearance. Thank you, Ida. The man nodded, eyes sweeping over to Uraraka, Todoroki, and Sue. You 3 have been awfully quiet, he said after a moment. Is there anything you'd like to share with me? No one moved. Sue glanced at Uraraka, who looked at Todoroki, who looked back at Uraraka. No one said anything. Guys? Ida murmured nervously, staring at his friends. Ochako was the first of all. I'm sorry, she cried, bursting into tears. Uraraka! Ida gasped. He begged me not to say anything. She shook her head. I was only supposed to tell Todoroki. Aizawa frowned, shifting the gaze to the boy. You knew of this as well, Todoroki. Sue nodded. As did I, she muttered sheepishly. All 3 of you? Ida gasped. All right. Miss Aizawa sighed. Thank you for being honest. Ida, you are free to go. Ida shook his head. If it's alright with you, sir, I would like to hear this. The teacher glanced at the other 3, who each nodded slightly. The man sighed. Very well, he muttered, turning to Ochako. Uraraka, you seem to be the most involved in this, he continued. Why don't you tell me what happened from the very beginning? Okay. The girl nodded, taking a shaking breath. It started about a week ago, she stuttered. I was on patrol when I thought I saw Deku on one of the buildings. I chased after him, and I was led to an abandoned bar. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. The League's hideout? Uraraka nodded. I realized when I got there that the person I'd been chasing was really Bentoga, she said with a frown. But Deku was inside waiting for me. So he had Toga disguise herself as him in order to lead you to his location. That's right, she said carefully. He said he wanted me to know that he was safe, and that he wanted to tell Todoroki too. Aizawa frowned, glancing at Todoroki. And what do you think of all this, Todoroki? I was confused, the boy admitted. Midoriya wouldn't tell her what happened, and she wouldn't tell me where he was. I begged her to let me see him, but But all I was supposed to know was that he was safe and somehow with the League of Villains. Aizawa furrowed his eyebrows, turning his attention to Sue. "And where do you fit in onto all of this?" he asked, not in an accusatory tone, simply curious. Sue gulped. "Well, on the day that Ochako first encountered Midoriya, I saw her coming back with him Kotoga over it," she said. I thought it was suspicious, so I made sure to keep a close eye on her in the next few days." "You didn't think you should have reported it?" Mr. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. The girl frowned. "I didn't want her to get into trouble, especially since I didn't know the full story," she explained. "But when you told the class Midoriya was staying with the League of Villains, it suddenly made sense." Aizawa nodded. "So you confronted Uraraka?" "Yes, I forced her to take her to see him," she said matter-of-factly. Todoroki was eavesdropping and made her bring him too. The man raised his eyebrows, glancing at Uraraka again. "You then want to see him again?" She swallowed thickly. "Yes, sir," she nodded. "We wanted to warn him that you knew where he was with the League, and to try to convince him to come back to school." Aizawa pursed his lips. "I'm guessing it didn't work?" "No, sir, it didn't," she said sadly. "He's hesitant and insisting that no one knows what happened or why he left." The teacher frowned. "I'm disappointed that you three have been keeping such valuable information about Midoriya's whereabouts, but this could prove useful going forward." The four students glanced at each other as Miss Aizawa continued. "Based on the information we've gathered so far, it sounds like there might have been a specific person responsible for Midoriya's sudden departure," Mr. Aizawa said gravely. "If we can figure out who that person was and the events that transpired, then we can take steps to ensure Midoriya's safety moving forward." He paused. "We're prepared to do anything that it takes to bring him back to UA. If you can convince Midoriya to tell you what happened, we can work on this. Together to fix this." Chapter 16. Todoroki and Uraraka stood across the street from the bar tucked behind a building. "So, what's the plan?" Todoroki asked somewhat nervously. "How are we planning on getting in this time?" "You mean you don't just want to barge in?" The girl deadpanned, pulling out her phone. "I'll text Toga and let her know we're here." Shoto blinked at the girl. "You have Toga's phone number?" Uraraka looked up, rolling her eyes. "Don't give me that look," she muttered. "She gave it to me last time we were here for this exact situation." She glanced back down, finishing up the text and hitting send. "So, what's going on?" Deku asked nervously as they entered the room. "Did they figure out my location?" Uraraka frowned. "Not yet," she said carefully, "but they know we've been in contact with you." "What?" he gasped. "How?" "Well, I guess I heard the conversation between Hawks and Darby," she said. "They figured it out." Deku took a steadying breath, turning to glare at Darby, who was sitting in the corner. The villain glanced up at the sound of his name, scrunching his nose. He was wearing a fucking wire?" he hissed. "Darby, I am going to fucking kill you," Izuku spat, pinching the bridge of his nose as he turned back towards his friends. "I'm sorry if he got you in trouble." "No, not really," Shoto mused. "However, that is part of the reason we're here." Izuku furrowed his eyebrows as Uraraka spoke. "You always prepared to do anything they need to make you feel safe to come back," she said lowly. "All you have to do is tell us who the problem was." "What?" The boy blanched. "We know it was someone that drove you away," she continued as Deku turned to glare at Darby again. "We just need to know who it is so we can fix this." He glanced back at the girl, shaking his head. "It's not that easy." She stepped forward. "Sure it is," she said. "If it was a student, they can be expelled or transferred to a different class. If it was a teacher, they'll be fired." No, he choked out, shaking his head harder. I don't want that. I don't want everything to change. I don't want everyone to know. Please. The girl frowned. But Deku... She was cut off with her hand on her shoulder, looking up to meet Shoto's eyes. Let me, he muttered softly. Ochako paused before nodding her head slightly, allowing Toga to lead her outside. I can't come back, Sho, he muttered as Shoto pulled him off to the side. He looked up pleadingly at the boy. Please, I just can't. Shoto frowned, gripping tighter to the boy's hands. Hey, it's okay, he said gently. I know, it's okay. What? Izuku froze. You're not gonna try to... Obviously, I want you to come back, Shoto said with a sigh. But I can tell this is important to you, so I won't press the matter anymore. Izuku swallowed thickly, pulling Shoto into a tight hug. Thank you, he murmured into his ear, eyes falling sharp. Thank you. Shoto took a shaky breath as he pulled back. Since you're not coming back, is there anything you want to tell anyone? You want me to tell anyone? He asked carefully. I'm not sure, Izuku hummed, blinking back in thought. How's Kachan? Shoto blinked. Bakugo? I think he's been alright, he muttered, giving it some thought. I haven't seen much of him lately. He's been training a lot. Training? He muttered hesitantly. By himself? No, actually. The boy shook his head. All Might's taking quite an interest in him. Deku paled. He's been training with All Might. Shoto nodded once, furrowing his eyebrows as the other boy swallowed thickly, glancing around him before leaning in towards him. Meanwhile, Toga and Ochako were standing outside the bar, speaking lowly as they waited for Shoto to come out. I just don't get it, Uraraka confessed, leaning against the building. She scratched at her chest as she spoke. I can tell he misses UA. We're offering him a solution on a silver platter and he still won't take it. Toga frowned. It's not that simple, she argued, and Uraraka scoffed. You sound just like him, she muttered, glancing alongside at the villain. How is it that he comes to trust you so much more than us in just a few weeks? That's not true. Ochako frowned. He told you though, didn't he? She mused. You know what happened to him? And we're still clueless. I was pretty pushy about it, the girl confessed. Not that I recommend it. He really didn't open up until he was ready anyways. But... She cut off herself, scratching anxiously against her chest. We're just trying to help him, you know. Why won't you let him help us? Toga frowned. I know how you feel, but to Izuku, the people at UA finding out what happened creates more problems than it solves, she said gently. He doesn't want... The girl trailed off, eyebrows furrowing. Why do you keep scratching at your chest? Uraraka blinked. Huh? Ochako, she frowned, eyes trailing from the girl's shirt, askew from where she was scratching, coming to meet her eyes again. No. She swallowed thickly. Listen, okay? Toga's eyes widened, and she rushed past the hero and get up to through the door, just in time to see Izuku leading towards Shoto. Todoroki, listen to me. Izuku, they're wearing wires, she screeched as she burst inside, Ochako stumbling in just behind her. Izuku blinked, words dying in his throat as he glanced back up at Shoto. Todoroki. Shoto? He whispered. Shoto wanted to speak, but Izuku suddenly reached forward, ripping open the buttons of his shirt to reveal the wire. He had looked up at the boy, the hurt apparent in his face. Shoto swallowed thickly. Midoriya, listen. Izuku cut him off with a harsh shove back. Get out, he spat. But... No, what the fuck? Izuku's voice wobbled as he spoke. Uraraka frowned, taking a hesitant step towards him. Deku, please. No. He shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. How dare you? I trusted you. I told you. I said I didn't want anyone to know what happened to me, but you went behind my back to try to get them to get that information anyway. You promised me, he sobbed. You said it was okay. He turned to Todoroki now, tears spilling down his cheeks. How dare you? Shoto gulped, eyes filling with tears of his own. Izuku. No, get the fuck out, he hissed. And don't come back, because I won't fucking be here. What? He turned towards Uraraka, flashing her the meanest look he could muster. Obviously, I can't trust you to keep anything a secret, which means my location is officially compromised. He spat, leaning to speak into the wire she was wearing. You hear that? He yelled. I'm not coming back. I'll be gone before you get here. Izuku. Toga approached him, putting a hand on his shoulder. Calm down. He paused, taking a deep breath. Just get them out of here. I'm done. He paused. He turned, beginning to head for the stairs. But Deku... No, wait. Right, brats. It's time for you to go. Darby gripped Shoto and Uraraka by the shoulders, beginning to lead them towards the door. Shoto paled, writhing in the villain's grip. No, wait, please. He choked out, voice growing more and more panicked as they approached the door. Toya, stop. Darby froze, physically recoiling. How the hell did you... He faltered, and Shoto got the opportunity to break free from his grip. Doubling back and running towards the green-headed boy again. Izuku, please, he begged. Stop him, Darby yelled. Shigaraki started menacingly towards the boy, lifting one of his hands. I'll disintegrate you, twerp. No. The guttural screech suddenly silenced the room, everyone's attention turning to Izuku, who looked absolutely panicked. Don't hurt him, he cried, tears filling his eyes yet again, and a breath got caught in Shoto's throat as he looked at the boy. He took a shaky breath and spoke again. Please, Shoto, just go. Shoto swallowed thickly, turning to and rushing out of the room without another word, Uraraka trailing defeatedly behind. As soon as the door shut behind them, and Deku was left at last alone with the League, he immediately turned, sprinting up the rest of the way of the stairs. Izuku, wait! Toga called out, chasing after him. She paused at the top of the steps, frowning as she watched Izuku pace. I have to go, he choked out, putting his head in his hands, tugging harshly at his curls. Where am I gonna go? Toga frowned, moving towards the boy. Izuku, you don't have to leave, just... Yes, I do, he sobbed, cutting her off. They're gonna come after me. They're gonna come back, take me back. He veered from her path as she approached him, turning to begin grabbing his things, shoving them haphazardly into his bag. I have to get out of here before they show up, Toga. I have to go now. Izuku, stop, the girl snapped, grabbing him by the shoulders. She turned him towards her, pulling him into a tight hug. Calm down. He sobbed into her arms, thrashing as he attempted to break free, but her grip was too ironclad. No, let me go, he said. I have to leave. But Toga just held on tight until the boy eventually went slack in her hold. Chapter 17. Todoroki! Uraraka called after him as he hurried down the street, furiously blinking back tears. Todoroki, wait! He turned suddenly on his heels, freezing the girl at her tracks. This is all your fault, he spat, pushing past the pained expression on her face. I was this close to getting something out of him, and you ruined it. And yet, if And if you had taken me to see him sooner, like I fucking asked, then maybe he'd be with us now, instead of packing up and leaving again. Uraraka choked on a sob, tears spilling down her own cheeks before she could stop them. I know, okay? I know I messed up. I did the best I could with what I knew, but I never fucking knew how to handle this, she hissed. I'm sorry the plan didn't work, okay? But I'm not the only one who's screwed up here. Laying the blame all on me isn't going to fix anything, so what the hell do we do now? Todoroki's jaw clenched, hurt and anger flaring in his chest, but he knew deep down that the girl was right. He took a shaky breath, counting down from 7 in his head, a trick Izuku had taught him to calm down his nerves. He blinked back tears of his own. You're right, he said lowly. I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. There was a long stretch when no one spoke, their sniffles and shaky breaths commingling as the tension in the air hung between them. Then Uraraka swallowed. Let's head back then, she said softly, voice cracking with the weight of it. Oh, we convened with Miss Aizawa and Detective Tsukauchi. Hopefully they thought of a backup plan. Shoto paused, nodding carefully as he reached to click off the microphone of the wire he was wearing. Uraraka did the same, and they turned back to walk in the direction of the school. After a few awkward minutes of silence, Uraraka spoke again. So, what was that with you and Darby, anyway? She asked curiously. Did I hear you call him Toyo? Yeah, Shoto muttered, eyes trained ahead as he swallowed the lump in his throat. He's my brother. Uraraka stopped in her tracks, blinking in shock. Wait, what? Todoroki paused, glancing back at the girl. I thought he was dead, he said simply. But the other day, up close like that, the way he talks, I don't know, I just recognized him, he muttered. I pushed it down, tried to tell myself I was crazy, but I knew. Shit, the girl muttered, frowning, as they began to walk again. That's insane. Are you alright? Shoto hummed, considering the question. I don't know. We were never really that close, but with everything that's happened lately. He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. Yeah, it's a lot. Uraraka nodded, lips turning down in a frown. Are you gonna tell your dad? No. Shoto answered immediately. He blinked at his own words caught up with him. No, I don't think I will. The two made their way into the school, wordlessly counting the steps to the principal nursery's office, where they knew Miss Aizawa would be waiting with Detective Tsukauchi. Shoto pushed open the door, grumbling as he made eye contact with their strict-driven teacher. Tsukauchi motioned for them to sit, and they did, Uraraka pulling the door closed carefully behind them. There was a long stretch where no one spoke, content to stew in the aftermath of everything that had gone wrong. Then Mr. Aizawa spoke. I know you kids are disappointed, but we knew this was a long shot, he said carefully. You did your best, and I'm proud of you for both putting yourself in that situation. So, what now? Uraraka asked after a moment, echoing Shoto's thoughts exactly. They were running out of time and running out of options. The detective leaned forward slightly in his chair, flipping to a page in the back of his notebook. Can you tell me about Bakugo's behaviour as of late? Uraraka blinked once. Bakugo? Just before their conversation was cut short, Todoroki mentioned his connection to All Might. This seemed to bother Midoriya quite a bit, and their busy training schedule had made it hard to pin down Bakugo for questioning. Shoto furrowed his eyebrows as the man spoke. Have either of you noticed him acting strange lately? It's like It's like I told Midoriya, Shoto said, clearing his throat. I haven't seen much of him lately. Ochaku nodded as she glanced between them. Yeah, he'd been training a lot he's been training late into the evenings most days. Mr. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. So like Deku was doing before he disappeared. The student's eyes widened, and Tsukauchi cleared his throat. Have either of you noticed changes in Bakugo's demeanor? Anger, frustration? Can you recite the normal amount? Uraraka quipped lightly before pausing in thought. He's been quieter than usual, she said after a moment, but he's probably just worn out. All the training, you know. There's a long pause, and Aizawa glanced over at the detective, who was scribbling furiously in his notebook. I think I would like to meet with Bakugo one last time. What's this about? Bakugo grumbled, crossing his arms over his chest as he stumbled into the chair across from Aizawa and Tsukauchi. I'm supposed to be training with All Might in 20 minutes. Don't worry, the detective cleared his throat, flipping to a fresh page in his notebook. We've had Principal Nezu call ahead to All Might to let him know you'll be a few minutes late today. Bakugo furrowed his eyebrows, refusing to make eye contact as he spoke. Well, get on with it then. Mr. Aizawa frowned as he studied the boy, as if he could uncover the answers by simply searching his hunched frame hard enough. We were able to make contact with Deku, he said after a moment. The boy's eyes snapped up, widening slightly as they met the teachers for the first time since he arrived. You did? Well, some of your classmates did, Tsukauchi clarified. We had them set up with microphones, and we were able to listen on a brief conversation before things went south. One in which your name came up. Katsuki blinked. Me? There was a long stretch of silence as the teacher and the detective both stared him down. Then, after a moment, he spoke again. What's this about? There was another brief pause, and Mr. Aizawa swallowed thickly. Bakugo, he said carefully. I know things have been difficult lately, and several of your classmates have noticed you throwing yourself headfirst into your training. He paused, thinking over his next words. But is any of that the reason? Is there any reason you could think of as to why Midoriya might be especially concerned about you training with All Might? The boy faltered, eyes furrowing. Wait, what? When he heard that All Might had taken you under his wing, so to speak, Deku grew audibly upset. The detective took over yet again. It sounded like he was going to say something serious, but we were unfortunately discovered and your friends forced out before we could hear anything else, he said. Is there anything you think Deku might have wanted to say about you? A pause. All Might? Bakugo swallowed thickly in his throat as he processed the man's words. How the hell should I know? He choked out, face burning as he averted his eyes again. Mr. Aizawa blinked, frowning as he looked over him. Bakugo, he stated. He started, but the boy cut him off. The boy knows probably just pissed I sold his fucking mentor or some shit. He hissed, his own words barely registering as over the ringing in his ears. I'm picking up where he left off, doing all the shit he couldn't, and he fucking hates it, he grumbled. That's my guess. There was a long stretch of silence, and Mr. Aizawa went to speak, but was interrupted by the sound of Bakugo's phone buzzing in his pocket. The boy picked it up, eyebrows raising almost imperceptibly as he glanced down at the screen, then stood with a jolt. If we're done here, I'm already late, he muttered, giving the men no time to answer before turning and hurrying out of the room. Neither of them spoke right away. Aizawa was silently processing the interaction as Tsukauchi jotted something down in his notebook. After a moment, the detective glanced up, Eyes unfocused, his words rang out like a pistol over the teacher's ears. So, what do you make of it? He shook his head softly. Something still feels off, but without any definitive answers. He paused, eyes falling shut. I'm all out of ideas. Chapter 18. Bakugo landed on the ground of the gym with a thud, breathing ragged as his explosions fizzled out. All Might approached with heavy stomps, hands on his hips as he glowered down at the younger boy. Is that all you got? Please, Bakugo groaned, breaking into a weak cough. No more. Pathetic, All Might growled. You'll never be number one if you're still this weak. The student wanted to respond, but only a low groan escaped. All Might rolled his eyes as he spoke. Fine, hit the showers. Bakugo closed his eyes, tilting his head back as he let the hot water rush over his skin. He let out a deep sigh, hands shaking as he rubbed them over his face. He was pulled from his thoughts by the feeling of two hands coming to rest on his shoulders, trailing lightly down his arms. What the fuck? Katsuki turned, yanking himself back from the touch, raising his fist against the assailant. But before he could make contact, a large hand reached out and roughly gripped his wrist. His eyes widened as it locked with All Might's. What the hell are you doing? He choked out. His eyes were dark, devoid of any real emotion. I'm trying to help you relax, he said too calmly. His voice sent a chill down the boy's spine. You've been so tense, young Bakugo. He huffed, glancing away. Geez, wonder why. All Might narrowed his eyes, using his unoccupied hand to grip the boy's jaw harshly, and a whimper involuntarily escaped his lips. Check your tone. Bakugo stared the man down, composure crumbling with each passing moment. Is this the kind of shit you put Deku through? What? I mean, Katsuki continued, willing himself to maintain eye contact. Are you the one that drove him away? All Might snarled, shoving the boy back roughly. Deku was a failure, a mistake. He couldn't cut it as a hero. He reached out to grip his face yet again, and Bakugo lurched back. I thought you were stronger than him, the man muttered, eyes dark. Maybe I was wrong. Katsuki took another step back, bumping softly against the wall. He looked up at the man, his hero, unrecognizable, staring at him with a look that made his stomach lurch. There was nowhere else to run. Bakugo walked back to the dorm building silently. The taste of bile rose in his throat as his hands shoved deep in his pockets, crushing his All Might card in his fists. He entered the common room, glancing up to see a few of his classmates, Mina, Denki, Sero, and Kirishima, gathered around the couch chatting. Hey! The chorus of voices rang out as a few of them glanced up. How's the training sesh? Denki added distractedly. Bakugo didn't respond, not trusting his voice at the moment. Kirishima looked up at the lack of response, meeting his eyes. He immediately frowned. Dude, you okay? Bakugo's eyes stung, and he swallowed thickly, nodding his head in the direction of his room. Kirishima paused, then nodded, slowly rising to his feet. The two walked wordlessly to Bakugo's dorm. The only sounds were their footsteps and the sound of ringing in Bakugo's ears. They made it to the room in one piece, and Kirishima guided Bakugo to take a seat on the bed before sitting down beside him. There was a long stretch where no one spoke. Bakugo just sat there, hugging his knees to his chest, staring out in front of him. Kirishima had a frown etched onto his face, but stayed quiet, waiting for Bakugo to break the silence. Finally, he did. All Might, he spoke lowly, the name alone enough to make him sick. Isn't a hero anymore. The redhead paused, furrowing his eyebrows. Yeah, I know, he muttered. His retirement has been hard on everyone. Seeing him lose power like that... No, Katsuki shook his head. That's not what I meant. It's not just his power that's changed, it's him. Kirishima frowned. What do you mean? He puts on a face. Bakugo swallowed thickly, letting out a shaky breath. When there's other people around, he's fine. During training, when it's just us, he's different. He paused. He's getting so mad, so mean. He does things. Does things? Bakugo choked on a sob. Bad things. The air seemed to grow thick around them. Kirishima's voice was hoarse as he spoke. Cats, what are you saying? Bakugo pinched his eyes sharp, shaking it as he carefully rolled up his sleeves. They weren't the worst of the injuries, not by a long shot, but the yellowed bruises littering his arms painted the picture he'd been trying to ignore, and Kirishima let out a sharp gasp. Cats. He choked on the name as the blonde sobbed into his knees. Katsuki, just what have you been doing during training? The boy took a shaky breath, recounting everything the best he could. The ridiculous expectations, the impossible exercises, the verbal and physical abuse. He felt sick as he thought back to that afternoon in the locker rooms. And then today, after practice, he followed me into the... Kirishima's eyes blew wide, flaring with anger. Katsuki didn't need to say the words for the boy to know what he was saying. He might cry. He felt sick as he watched his best friend break down in front of him. Katsuki shook as he wiped the tears from his eyes, his other hand now sticking roughly into his skin. Fuck, he hissed. I can't stop thinking. He was probably doing all this shit to Deku too. Kirishima visibly stilled. Oh god, Midoriya, he muttered, pulling fresh sobs from the boy beside him. After a moment he spoke again. Cats, we've got to tell someone. I can't, he choked out, sparing a glance up at his best friend, who was looking down at him with so much love and sadness that it physically hurt. Dude, Katsuki shook his head. You don't understand. He sobbed. I already ruined all my career. It's my fault. He tells me every day. And this... He cut himself off, another shaky sob escaping his lips. Shit. Hey, jeez, this will end him. Edro frowned. Maybe that's what he deserves for beating his students. He wasn't like this before, the boy choked out. Before he lost his powers. If I hadn't been so weak, then... Katsuki, Kirishima cut him off. None of this was your fault. But... He shook his head again, voice raising slightly. This is not your fault. Bakugo flinched, breaking into tears yet again, and Kirishima swore thickly, pulling the boy into his chest, arms wrapping around tightly. Hey, it's okay, he muttered into his hair. It's gonna be okay. Near the end, Kirishima was the one who called the meeting with Mr. Aizawa, Principal Nezu, and Detective Tsukauchi, and due to the boy's serious tone, Mr. Aizawa invited President Mike along for additional support. So, Kirishima, the principal said from his seat at his desk, the detective seated curiously beside him. On the other side of the desk, Kirishima sat with Bakugo, Mr. Aizawa, and President Mike, sitting there stiffly beside him. You said you and Bakugo had something quite important to discuss with us, yes? Kirishima nodded, holding tightly to Bakugo's hand, while the blonde nervously shook his leg, staring into a random scratch on the desk. Yes, sir, he said. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Is everything okay, kid? Mr. Aizawa asked, reaching out to place what was supposed to be a comforting hand on Bakugo's shoulder, but he flinched away at the touch, and Sensei pulled away quickly, freezing his tasks. Kid? Kirishima gulped. Well, first of all, we think we might have an idea as to what has driven Midoriya away. Midoriya? President Mike confirmed, tentatively from the teacher's other side. Really? Principal Nezu frowned. And what makes you say this? Bakugo swallowed the lump in his throat, slowly raising his gaze to meet the rodent. Because it's happening to me too. Silence. No one moved. Aizawa's eyes darkened, breath hitching in a grim realization, one that hit him like a punch to the gut. All right, he said lowly, and Bakugo flinched, clenching his eyes sharp. He trembled as he nodded, a single tear dripping down his cheek. I'm gonna fucking kill him. The teacher pushed his chair back, standing in a one fluid motion, but Mike moved with him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Hang on a minute, Sho." "He's right," Principal Nezu said gravely. "Unfortunately, we need to know more before we can move forward." His gaze shifted from Aizawa to Detective Tsukauchi, then back to the student in front of him. "Bakugo, I know it may be painful, but would you like to tell us exactly what's been going on with All Might?" The boy blinked, vision blurring as his brain played back every memory all at once, his entire body shaking. Kirishima leaned in carefully, squeezing his hand. "Do you want me to?" Bakugo swallowed thickly, then slowly nodded. He squeezed his hand again, gently rubbing his thumb over the boy's skin. Then he looked up, eyes glazing over Miss Aizawa's and President Mike's concerned faces before landing on Principal Nezu once again. "So, ever since Midoriya left, All Might started taking an interest in Bakugo," he said carefully, "training him like he did to Deku. And the longer it went on, the more he realized something wasn't quite right." He paused, swallowing thickly as he squeezed Bakugo's hand again, a silent reassurance. "The exercises got harder, and All Might got meaner. He pushes him to his breaking point, then degrades him for not going further." He paused, and then things started to get violent. There was a long stretch of silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, after another moment, Detective Tsukauchi spoke. "So, you think you're treating Deku this way too?" And simply switched his focus to Bakugo after he disappeared. Kirishima nodded. We think it's probably been going on since Kamino. When I think about it, Deku started acting differently around them too. "The loss of his power and hero status must have pushed him over the edge," Nezu said with a hum. "Truly a tragic end for the number one hero." Mr. Aizawa, who had been eagerly quiet throughout the last several minutes, rushed to stand, stumbling out of the room. President Mike tailed immediately behind him. "Sho!" the blonde man called after him. He reached out to grab his hand. "Shoto, hang on." The teacher turned, ripping his hand from his husband's hold, as he stared at him with wide eyes. Barely contained tears threatened to spill over. "It was so obvious," he hissed. "Fuck, Mike, it was right in front of my face the whole time. I didn't even see it." He choked on a sob, pinching his eyes shut. "How could I have missed this?" Mike went to speak, but Shoto's eyes suddenly blew wide, stopping him in his tracks. "Shit," he muttered. "I left him in charge of the rest of the class." He turned, then, immediately sprinting down the hallway to Class 1A. He swung the door open aggressively, and All Might blinked up in shock, the students all glancing up from their work. "Ah, Miss Aizawa, you're back." The teacher crossed the room in 3 quick strides, and, before anyone could even process what was happening, grabbed him by the collar and pulled back his fist, connecting it angrily with his face. Noises of shock and dismay broke out among the class, and Mike surged forward, gripping Aizawa by the shoulders and pulling him back. "Easy there, Tiger," he muttered into his ear, unable to stop himself from shooting Toshinori a glare. "What the hell?" the former hero muttered, rubbing his jaw as he looked up, eyes shifting from Aizawa to Mike, to Tsukauchi, who was making his way hesitantly to a look of grief heavy in his eyes. "Toshinori," he muttered, "we're going to need you to come with us." All Might frowned as he locked eyes with Principal Nezu, who was perched on Tsukauchi's shoulder, before finally shifting his gaze across the room to see Bakugo lingering outside the door. Kirishima pressed firmly against his side, arms wrapped around him groundingly. All Might's eyes narrowed. "You!" he snarled. "You idiot! What did you do?" He launched forward, earning gasps from the room, but Aizawa was quick to snap out his scarf, stopping the man in his tracks as Tsukauchi grabbed his wrists, spinning him around. "What is the meaning of this?" Ida's voice boomed as he stood from his desk. Various other voices began filtering in the room. Before anyone could answer, it was a madhouse. A sharp whistle came from Principal Nezu's cut through the noise, silencing the room, and Aizawa half out of breath, eyes racking across the room. He made purposeful eye contact with Uraraka and Shoto, gesturing for them to follow, which they hesitantly did. "Mike," he murmured then, "will you stay with the rest of the class?" "Of course, my love," the man said lowly. "Go bring him home." Chapter 19. Second Chances. As the door to Class 1A shut behind them, President Mike was immediately bombarded with questions. "What's going on?" Zero all but shouted, rising to his feet. Kaminari was right behind him. "Is Kachan okay? Did All Might do something to Deku?" The last question sent an additional wave of panic throughout the class, and Mike had to let a powerful yell out to silence them all. "Listen up," the teacher said as calmly and clearly as he could manage. "I know that was pretty jarring to see, and you kids have a lot of questions you want answered. I get it." He paused, taking a grounding breath. "All I can say for right now is that All Might is no longer going to be a faculty member at UA, and if everything from here goes according to plan, we should have Deku back very soon." Meanwhile, while Nezuya and Sakauchi dealt with All Might, Mr. Aizawa led Kirishima, Bakugo, Uraraka, and Shoto to a private room. The latter two bombarded the teacher with questions, but they fell on deaf ears until the five were at last alone and seated around a desk. "Alright, we need to work fast," Mr. Aizawa said, clipped voice leaving no room for debate. "Uraraka," he started, turning his attention to the girl, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. "You still have Koga's contact information?" She blinked, taking a shaky breath. Yeah, I do." "Good," the teacher continued. "We need to make sure Deku doesn't flee after a slip-up yesterday." He paused, glancing between her and Bakugo, eyes softening slightly as he spoke. "Tell her we have discovered the problem, and that he won't be an issue anymore. We just need one more chance to talk to Midoriya." Uraraka frowned. "Wait," she murmured disbelievingly. "So All Might really did something bad?" "But wouldn't that mean—" Todoroki blinked, glancing over at Bakugo, who had been silent up to this point. The boy huffed, crossing his arms as he glanced away. "This isn't about me now. We're on a fucking time limit, so focus your energy where it matters, goddamn icy heart." There was a long drawn-out silence, and he nodded solemnly as Uraraka pulled out her phone and sending a string of messages to Toga. Now was no time to mince words. "Hey, it's Oshako. I know we messed up, but please. We figured out who the problem was, and another student came forward with some allegations. We should have realized. We just want to talk to Deku. Please, let us make things right. Please tell us he's still there." She watched the screen with bated breath as she waited for a reply. It came faster than she ever anticipated. "He's here." Then another. "You're gonna need to hurry. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep him here." And so, 30 minutes and one very tense car ride later, the group had finally arrived around the corner from the League of Villains base. Ochaka sent another quick text to Toga letting them know they were there, which she hit with a thumbs up. A few minutes later, she was outside the door, ushering them discreetly over. "Oh, I know you," she said somewhat cheerfully as her eyes landed on Bakugo, but then she faltered, blinking as her lips turned down in a frown. "Oh, it's you." The boy just scowled, pressing his body impossibly close to the Kirishima, who wrapped their pinkies together in a show of gentle comfort. Katsuki clenched his jaw. "Is he fucking here or what?" Toga smiled sadly, unperturbed by Bakugo's grisly nature. "Yeah, he's upstairs," she said gently. "I have twice with him right now so he doesn't try to run off. He's been trying to make a break for it ever since he left yesterday." She paused, surveying the group. "So, what's the plan this time?" Mr. Aizawa opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off by Bakugo. "I'll go," he grumbled, earning a nervous glance from the remainder of the group. "It should be me." Well, cats. Are you sure?" Kirishima questioned lowly in the boy's ear. He grunted in response, gently pushing himself from Kirishima's hold, and taking a careful step forward. "It needs to be me." Shoto frowned, mirroring the boy's movements. "I'm going too." Bakugo's eyes snapped up to meet the others in a glare, and he went to argue but was quickly interrupted. I'll stay downstairs while you talk to Midoriya, but you shouldn't go in there alone, not after everything that's happened. Katsuki huffed, but otherwise stayed silent. He hated to admit it, but the boy was right. Aizawa nodded in assent, giving to another once-over before he spoke. Alright then, he muttered. Kirishima, Uruwaka, I will wait outside for reinforcements. If things go south, send a signal and we'll join you inside. Toga led the two boys quietly inside the bar, ignoring the trepidatious stares from the other League members who were scattered around the room, as she motioned for Bakugo to follow her up the steps. He glanced back at Shoto once more, who simply nodded, watching as the two blondes turned and disappeared from view. He swallowed a lump in his throat, letting out a shaking breath. All he could do now was wait and believe in his friend. He turned then, scanning over the room before landing onto an all-too-familiar face, tucked strategically away in the back corner. Shoto made his way over, sitting indecisively across from the villain. Darby looked over at him like he had sprouted a second head. What the hell are you doing? Waiting for my friends, he said matter-of-factly, blinking as he studied the man. What are you doing here? There was a shorter pause, and Darby huffed, glancing away as he spoke. I don't have to answer you. Shoto frowned. Well, you should answer to someone, he argued. We thought you were dead. Yeah, obviously I know that. The villain snapped. There's a fucking reason. Obviously, I know the reason. Shoto fired back. Dad. Darby scoffed. If you can even call him that, he muttered, letting his gaze linger on the younger boy for a moment before ripping them away once again. Don't act like you're fucking innocent in all this. Shoto furrowed his eyebrows, pausing briefly before he spoke. I never said I was innocent, but I was a child. We both were. He said lowly. Maybe both of us were never entirely free to blame, but I do think we're better than him. He paused, although, admittedly, that's a low bar. Darby stared at him for a long moment, barely disguised annoyance giving way to something different, something softer. He tuttered softly, rolling his eyes a little. You don't even know me, he hissed. You never fucking knew me. And whose fault was that? Shoto pressed, cocking an eyebrow at his brother. There was a pause before both boys' voices sounded at the same time. Endeavour. Darby faltered at that, blinking once, and Shoto almost missed the way his lips quirked up at the corners. Fucking Endeavour. As Toga and Katsuki made their way up the stairs, quiet voices began to filter in from above. The boy's stomach twisted at a familiar voice, one he hasn't heard in almost a month. Twice, you don't understand. Izuku spoke slowly but frantically. Katsuki could hear the way his footsteps circled the room above. You have to let me go. I need to go now, before they come for me again. Bakugo frowned as the villain's voice chimed in. Sorry, kid, no can do. I'm under strict orders from Toga not to let you out of my sight. He wanted to say something else, but surely a contraction of some kind, but was cut off by the boy's panicked voice yet again. No, I know what you said, but please. Katsuki was fed up. He huffed, stomping up the last few steps of the room. Deku. Deku spun around so fast that he lost his footing, bumping into twice as he looked at Bakugo with wide eyes. Ka-chan? He swore thickly, breaking free from the hold Twice had before to keep him from falling. How did you... He paused as his eyes tracked Toga, who was standing a little bit further back, looking slightly guilty. Toga? He muttered through betrayal. What did you do? Izuku, just listen to him, okay? She begged, silently beckoning twice towards the room across the room towards her. This is all for you. Please, just listen. She didn't give the boy a chance to answer before taking Jin by the wrist and bringing him back down the stairs. Deku gulped, glancing around glancing down at his shoes as Kachan took another step forward. "Deku," he said again. "Kachan," he muttered, still not making eye contact. "Why are you here? I can't," he faltered. "I didn't." "It was All Might," Bakugo said suddenly, successfully freezing the other boy in his tracks. He let his gaze slowly rise from as he barreled on. "Wasn't it?" Izuku swallowed thickly. What?" he rasped, words getting caught in his throat. Kachan took a careful step forward. "He changed. After Kimino, training got tougher," he said lowly, pain seeping into each word. "He got mean. He kept pushing and pushing until he reached a breaking point." He paused, breath catching his throat before the last words tumbled out. "He hurt you." "How did you?" The boy trailed off, blinking at Kachan. His heart jumped into his throat. No. Kachan didn't speak. He didn't need to. The way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes fitted off to the side, breath catching ever so slightly, Izuku knew. "Kachan? I thought..." He kept going, willing the words to come out carefully, despite wanting nothing more than to scream at the top of his lungs and never stop. "I thought I was the problem," he choked out. "He said..." A pause, a breath. I thought that if I left then he wouldn't... I never thought he would..." The words died on his throat as tears began to cloud his vision. "I thought it was me." Katsuki met his gaze then, still rigid but eyes softening ever so slightly. "It was never your fault, Izuku." The boy's breath hitched as Katsuki continued. "They took him away," he muttered, impossibly quieter. "You can't hurt either of us anymore. You can come back." Tears spilled down Izuku's cheeks as he trembled, wondering if he could possibly make sense of what everything Kachan had just confessed. Does everyone know?" "Class saw him get arrested." Katsuki spoke lowly, voice constricted from the weight of it all. "Only Adro and the teachers know the specifics." It was quiet then, the only sound of the boy's labouring breath commingling in the air. After a moment, Kachan spoke again. "You're not going to make me go back alone, are you, Izuku?" And that was all it took for another sob to rake through the boy's body, knocking him off kilter once again. Kachan rushed forward, letting Izuku at last collapse into his arms. "I'm sorry," Izuku whispered. "I'm so sorry." Kachan just sighed, shifting his hold so the boy could stand. "Yeah, I know." Chapter 20. Shoto sighed, letting his cheek come to rest against his palm, elbow on the table as he waited. He and Darby had gone back to sitting in silence, but it was no longer awkward, bathed in a renewed sense of understanding for each other. Darby glanced up then, humming softly. "Here comes your boyfriend." "He's not my..." Shoto furrowed his eyebrows, but stopped in his tracks, eyes widening as he whipped around to see Izuku making its way slowly down the steps, Bakugo with his arm wrapped securely around his shoulder. He stumbled out of the booth and turned, freezing as their eyes locked. "Izuku," he whispered. The boy blinked, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Hi," he croaked out, voice raw, eyes rubbed red from crying. Shoto wasted no time, flying towards and flinging himself into the boy's arms, just as he had done the first time he had shown up at the League's hideout. It felt like a lifetime ago, but it was like coming home as he tucked his face into the crook of Shoto's neck. He couldn't stop the tears from leaking out of his eyes once again. "I'm sorry," he choked into Izuku's hair, holding him tighter. "I'm so sorry. I should have never..." He felt Izuku shake his head, trailing off as the boy pulled back a step, looking up at him through teary green eyes. "No, I know you're just trying to help. I shouldn't have..." He paused, taking a steadying breath. "I never should have said those things to you." Shoto choked on another sob, pulling the boy into his arms once again. He would have been content to stay like that forever, but Bakugo loudly cleared his throat, and they reluctantly pulled apart. If we're done with this little love fest, can we go? He barked, but his tone didn't hold his usual hostility. He just sounded tired. If we don't get out of here soon, Ozawa and PG are gonna start to panic. Izuku blinked, letting his gaze filter across the room. Right, he muttered, pulling away from Shoto and glancing around once again. He frowned as he spotted Shigaraki and Spinner sitting together at the bar, making his way carefully towards them. Hey, he muttered awkwardly. Thank you for everything. I know I was kind of a burden, but... Hey, Spinner cut him off. Don't do that. You helped us out plenty. Izuku blinked, eyes shifting to Shigaraki. You remember what I told you, right? Shigaraki huffed a little, but it wasn't bitter. If anything, the boy could see the way his lips upturned in a slight smirk. You don't need to worry about me, kid, he muttered somewhat fondly. I already decided I'm not going to go through with it. Good, Deku said with a grin. You don't need him. He glanced towards Darby then, who was still sitting in the corner of the room. The boy went to speak, but was quickly interrupted. Save the pleasantries, kid, Darby said with his usual cool detachment. He didn't move from his seat as he spoke. Having you around wasn't unbearable, but you got friends to go back to. Look out for them. But make sure you look out for yourself too. Izuku grinned softly, nodding once. He took a shaky breath, utterly spent from the day and everything leading up to it, but it wasn't over. He still had a couple more goodbyes to get through. He turned, making his way towards the entrance where Toga and Twice were standing expectingly. He swallowed thickly, looking up at Twice. Thank you, he choked out. Really, I don't know where I'd be without you. The man flashed a grin that Izuku could tell was meant to mask the tears in his eyes. Don't mention it, kid. I'm glad I could help. Izuku smiled sadly, pulling the villain into a tentative hug. I'll miss this. I'll miss you too, he choked out, then, no I won't. Izuku laughed, and after a moment the man let out another quieter, yes I will. Izuku let out another shaky breath, hesitantly glancing towards Toga. I'll walk you out, she said before Izuku could even get a word out, which he was secretly grateful for. He didn't fully trust his voice at the moment. Shoto was by his side in an instant, firmly pressing their shoulders together. He flashed the boy a reassuring smile. Izuku swore thickly, nodding as he glanced at Kachan, who came up to the other side of Shoto. Toga opened the door, letting the other three walk out before trailing behind. He saw Mr. Aizawa first, just a few yards away, leaning against the hood of a car, eyes fixed on his phone as he furiously typed. Uraraka was pacing in circles around the vehicle, Kirishima trying and failing to calm her down, but the moment she looked up, gaze meeting his, she instantly froze. Oh my god, she muttered, and Mr. Aizawa glanced up, eyes widening as they met the boys. He dropped the phone. Izuku didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The teacher was on him in an instant, long legs carrying him forward until he was directly in front of the teen, then screeching to a halt. He looked like he had seen a ghost, outstretched hands floating in front of him as if he was afraid one touch might scare him away again. Midoriya, he said lowly. He fought to keep his voice level, but a slight tremor betrayed him. The boy swallowed thickly. Mr. Aizawa, I'm sorry. He moved all at once then, silencing Izuku as he pulled him into a bone-crashing hug. He shook his head as he spoke into the boy's shoulder. No, don't you dare say that, he muttered, gently, but with conviction. I should be apologizing. I didn't see it. I should have seen it. You were going through so much, struggling right in front of my face, and He choked on a sob, pulling back to look meaningfully into the boy's eyes once again. I'm so sorry, kid. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding, taking a moment to survey Midoriya. He looked thinner, slightly tattered clothes hanging loosely on his frame. His sunken eyes were rubbed red and raw from crying, and even now fresh tears threatened to spill down his cheeks. But he was right here, alive and in front of him, and that was all that his teacher had wished for the past month. He pulled him into another hug. After several moments, the two pulled apart once again, and Izuku glanced up to meet Uraraka's misty eyes. He took a hesitant step forward, and the girl wasted no time in closing the gap, pulling him into a tight hug. "I'm sorry," Izuku muttered, "for everything I said. You know I didn't mean it, right?" Ochako shook her head, holding the boy tightly as she spoke. No, you were right. We should have never done that to you. We weren't considering your feelings at all." Deku pulled back, swallowing a lump in his throat. "You're just trying to help," he said lowly, voice beginning to shake from exhaustion. The others could clearly see it on his face. "Come on," Uraraka muttered. "You look like you could use some rest." Izuku frowned, eyes widening a fraction as he turned, eyes locking with Toga. She opened her mouth to speak, but the boy moved suddenly, falling into a full-body hug. He actually knocked her off kilter a little bit, and she stumbled back, eyes wrapping tightly round him. "Thank you," he sobbed into her skin. "Thank you for everything. Without you, I don't know if I..." "Oh, Izuku," she muttered, squeezing her eyes shut as she let it as a few stray tears leaked out her eyes. She hugged him tightly. "You're stronger than you're ever giving yourself credit for, Izuku. You're going to be okay." He choked on another sob, giving her one final squeeze before pulling away, shakily wiping the tears from his cheeks. She did the same, turning to make her way back inside, but Uraraka surged forward then, pulling her into a hug of her own. Toga blinked, eyes widening for a moment before falling short. "Thank you," she heard Ochako whisper. If Toga responded, it was too low to hear. After another long moment, the brown-haired girl pulled away, and Toga quickly turned, hurrying to the building. There was a long moment when no one said anything. Then Miss Aizawa spoke. "You right, kid?" Deku blinked, eyes turning to meet his teacher. "Yeah," he muttered. "I'm ready." As the group made their way carefully towards the car, as if any sudden movements or sounds might pop the bubble they were floating in, Kirishima leaned in towards him slowly. "It's really good to see you, man." Izuku grinned a little, tired eyes glancing up as he spoke. "You too, Kirishima," he said softly. "Thank you for looking after Kachan." Katsuki's ears burned red as he overheard the conversation, but Kirishima just grinned, giving him a little nod. "Of course, dude. Always." They climbed into the car, Uraraka in the passenger seat, and the four boys cramped into the back. Shoto next to the window, with Izuku pressed up against his side, and Katsuki and Adria on the other end, arm wrapped securely around the blonde. Aizawa glanced up from the rearview mirror, taking a moment to simply watch the boys before starting the car and heading back towards the school. Chapter 21, Homecoming. Sometime between when they pulled out from where they were parked in that back alley and when they arrived back at the school, Izuku had dozed off. He awoke to the feeling of someone gently shaking him awake. He blinked his eyes open, meeting with heterochromatic ones as Shoto stared back at him. "We're back," he simply said. Izuku nodded, a light blush coating his cheeks as he unbuckled his seatbelt, following the other boy out of the car. He could see Detective Tsukauchi and Principal Nezu waiting eagerly outside the entrance for him, but no words were spoken as he made his way tentatively towards them. It was only once he stood firmly in front of them that Nezu spoke from the perch on the detective's shoulder. "Midoriya," he said plainly. We're beyond pleased to see you're back. From all of us at UA, I'd like to humbly apologise for everything that we failed to see, and everything we failed to do." Deku blinked, taking a shaky breath in. "It's okay, He paused. "Thank you." Tsukauchi smiled sadly as he spoke. "We'll eventually need you to come in for some questions, and you'll go to see Recovery Girl too," he said, the gentleness in his tone easing the tension of his words. "But just rest for tonight. You've already been through enough today." "Yes," Deku said with a nod. Of course, thank you. Shoto was beside him immediately then, linking their arms together carefully. On his other side, Mr. Aizawa appeared, leading the group quietly through campus and into the Class A dorm building. I've heard Mike tell the class that you need some space tonight, the teacher said as they made their way slowly up the stairs. Not sure how well they'll listen though. You're still problem children after all, and everyone's been quite eager for your return. He paused at the top of the steps, glancing down once more at the boy. You ready? Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat, nodding once. He pushed open the door, and they stepped inside the room, 20 pairs of eyes immediately raising to meet theirs. There were several gasps. Several people stood. A few called out. Ida stood, taking a step forward before an outstretched arm before President Mike held him and froze him in his place. I apologize, Miss Aizawa, the class representative said. We simply could not retreat to our rooms and wait after everything that transpired today. We wanted to see for ourselves if or when you brought Midoriya back. He paused, gaze shifting to the green-haired boy. Midoriya, he said, softer now. The boy blinked, glancing down at his shoes. Mr. Aizawa frowned, cutting them off. I understand that, and as you can see, we have been successful on that front. However, he has been through quite the ordeal, which is why I wanted to give him the opportunity to rest and recuperate before being thrust into the chaos that is your class. I know that you... It's okay. Izuku's shaky voice cut him off, and everyone's eyes fell to him once again. I'm really tired, but I'm okay. And it's really nice to see everyone. There was various sniffles throughout the room, and there was another wave of students trying to speak. President Mike let out a sharp whistle, and Mr. Aizawa was glad, gave him a thankful look before speaking again, lowly to Izuku. Are you sure you're up for this? The boy nodded. Yeah, I need to sit down, he muttered, and pace myself, I guess. And so Shoto led him carefully across the room, hand resting lightly against his back as they moved. Midoriya, Ida said again, as the two began to walk past, bowing slightly as they slowed to a stop in front of him. I must admit I feel rather foolish. As class representative, I pride myself on being there for my classmates, and the fact that there was so much going on right under my nose, He paused, taking a careful breath. I failed to be an adequate friend to you. I apologize. Ida, it's okay, really, the boy said softly. I hid it really well. I didn't want people to know. You didn't do anything wrong. Ida sniffled, eyes glossy as he nodded once. Very well. It's truly good to see you and have you back. I will devote myself to improving my situational awareness and becoming the best class representative I can. Izuku gave him a soft smile before allowing Shoto to lead him the rest of the way to the couch. He guided the boy into a sitting position. Will you be alright here? I'm okay, he said softly. Thank you. Shoto simply nodded. I'll give you some space, but I'll be right over there if you need me. He gestured with his head as he spoke. If it gets too much, just give me a look and I'll be right there. Izuku grinned. Thanks, Sho. Shoto walked over to near the entrance, making sure Izuku saw where he ended up, before getting into a conversation with Uraraka and Sue, he was sure they both had a lot of questions. After a few moments, Tokiyami approached, dark shadow carefully hovering behind him. Midoriya, he said, slowly moving to sit across the couch from the boy. His posture stiff. Hello. Hi, he said softly, knees pulled up to his chest, picking idly at his bottom lip. There was a stretch of silence before the bird spoke again. He cleared his throat. I'm afraid I don't know where to begin, he said carefully, letting the silence stretch on for a moment longer before he continued. I noticed, of course, he said, softer now, the darkness that consumed you. There's only so many rationalizations one can make before. He trailed off, letting his gaze filter off to the side. Before things started making sense, I should have questioned them further. I apologize. Midoriya shook his head. It wouldn't have changed anything, he said lowly. I was embarrassed. I convinced myself that no one could ever know. He frowned, considering for a moment. I would have taken it to the grave. Tokoyami frowned at this, nodding solemnly. I wish things had played out differently, but I am truly glad that you're back, he said, then, pausing for a moment before adding, I hope you'll be more open about your future struggles. Your classmates are here for you. Thanks, Tokoyami, he said softly. The bird shifted to stand, nodding once more before taking his leave. Izuku sighed, letting his eyes float around the room. He noticed Kirishima standing off to the side, his arm wrapped firmly around Kachan as the two spoke lowly with Sero, Kaminari, Mina, and Jiro. He met Jiro's eyes and she blinked, quietly excusing herself from the group as she made her way over to the couch. She took a careful seat beside him. Are you okay? She asked after a moment. Midoriya considered it for a moment. Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm still a little sad about everything, but also really grateful. He paused. And glad to be back. That's good to hear, the girl said with a nod, swallowing thickly before speaking again. I didn't know I didn't know everything you went through. Bakugo and Kirishima only told us so much, but I'm sorry. We weren't here for you when you needed it. Izuku shook his head, frowning. No, that's not... You tried, he said. So many of you tried. I was the one who wasn't ready. She frowned, sitting with that for a moment before nodding carefully. Well, it's good to have you back, she said softly. And if you ever need anything, you know where to find me. The girl walked away before he could respond, and he barely had a chance to sit with her words before he heard the door to the lobby squeak open, looking up to see Hitoshi Shinso glancing around the room. Their eyes met, and Shinso made his way over hesitantly. Midoriya, he said carefully. He nodded in greeting, plastering a tight smile as he motioned for the other boy to sit. After a moment he did. So, he muttered, scratching the back of his neck. How are you feeling? Izuku sighed, glancing down. Tired, honestly. A little overwhelmed, but I'm okay. Shinso nodded. Right, that makes sense, he said lowly. I won't keep you long. I just wanted to see you firsthand, that you were alright. And Monoma didn't want to come with you for that? Midoriya teased a little, attempting to ease the tension. It worked, Shinso's lips turning up into a light smirk. I don't trust him to not say anything stupid. I'll bring him by once you've both had some time to settle. And Izuku chuckled a little at that, nodding once. Yeah, that makes sense. There was a stretch of silence, and after another long moment, Shinso spoke again. I won't ask, he muttered. Just know I'm here if you'd ever like to talk about it. And then he stood, walking away. Izuku swallowed thickly, his eyes stung as he glanced around the room once again. Mr. Aizawa made his way from behind, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. How are you holding up, kid? I'm alright, he said for what felt like the thousandth time that night. And he was, truly. He was so happy to be back with his friends and to see everyone. He was just still reeling from the events of the day, as well as the months leading up to it. The teacher nodded. We have one more little surprise for you, he said after a moment, if you're feeling up to it. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows, glancing up at the sound of a small voice. His gaze locked on to Mirio, who was holding Eri in the doorway. Mr. Deku! She cheered, wiggling out of Mirio's gasp and running towards the green-haired boy. Hey there, Eri, he said with a chuckle as the girl threw herself onto his lap. He winced slightly at the pressure, adjusting her hold as she buried her face in his neck. I missed you, she said sadly, looking up at him with big eyes. Where did you go? His heart broke a little, and he placed a comforting hand on the top of her head. I had to go away for a little bit. he said gently. Figure some things out. I'm sorry I worried you. She frowned. Why couldn't you figure them out here? It's complicated, he said, swallowing thickly. But I'm here now, and I'm really glad to be back. The girl went to say something else, but Miss Aizawa put a hand on her shoulder, garnering her attention once again. I think Deku's had a long day. The teacher said gently, Why don't we go back and get you an apple from the kitchen, and you can say hello to Bakugo on your way out. Eri frowned a little, but nodded, giving Deku another quick hug before letting Miss Aizawa pick her up and take her across the room. I'll be right there, Mirio called out to them, moving to sit next to Izuku. You should have seen her face when we told you were back, he said with a grin. I thought she was going to pass out. Izuku chuckled a little, fidgeting with his fingers as he spoke. And how are you doing? I'm sure you probably heard by now, about... He trailed off. Anyway, I know you looked up to him too. Miria looked at him like he had three heads. Are you seriously asking me how I'm handling this right now? Izuku shrugged a little, cheeks heating up in embarrassment, and Miria let out a kind of sad chuckle. Seriously, man, do you ever stop thinking about other people? Not really, the boy mused, but point taken. Togeda smiled sadly, letting her hand come to rest on Deku's knee. I know you've had a long day, and you look like you're about ready to pass out too, so I won't keep you, he said gently. Just know that everyone's really glad to have you back, and we're not going to let you struggle alone anymore, okay? Yeah, Deku said softly. Yeah, okay. The older boy left to go meet up with Eri and Aizawa, and Izuku let out a deep sigh, glancing around the room. Shoto caught his eye almost immediately, and one look at the boy had him excusing himself from his conversation with Ida and Momo heading his way. You're tired, he said simply, not a question but a fact. We should get you to bed now. Izuku blinked, going to argue, but Shoto gripped his wrist tightly, tugging him up from his spot on the couch. The change in altitude made his head spin, another wave of exhaustion crashing over him. Yeah, okay, he mumbled, leaning further into his touch. Let's go. Izuku barely registered the choruses of good nights he received as Shoto led him out of the common area and down the hall towards his bedroom. He held his breath as they stepped inside, looking over the space. It was just how he left it. Shoto didn't let him stew in his thoughts for long, moving past him to the room and opened up some drawers, rooting through them for a moment before pulling out a big t-shirt and a pair of boxers. He handed them to the boy, who took them hesitantly. Clean clothes will be more comfortable to sleep in, he said simply. I'll turn around so you can get changed. I'd like to stay until you get settled. Oh, Izuku said softly, a light blush creeping onto his cheeks as he nodded. Right, of course. Shoto turned, waiting quietly as Izuku slipped into the pajamas he had picked out for him. All right, he said after a moment, and Shoto turned back around. He stepped forward wordlessly, letting his hand snake around the boy before coming to rest on his back between his shoulder blades, gently guiding him towards the bed. He climbed in without much protest, Shoto bending down and pulling the covers over his arms. There, he whispered, safe and sound. He paused for a moment, leaning down to place a feather-light kiss to the boy's head before shifting to stand. Good night, Izuku. He moved to step back, but Izuku reached out, snatching his wrist in his hand. He looked up at him with pleading eyes. Will you stay? You want me to stay? Shoto gulped, eyes widening a fraction. I don't want to be alone, the boy admitted lowly. Please? And Shoto knew that he could never deny Izuku of anything. Carefully, he nodded, stepping forward and crawling into the bed himself. He wrapped his arms around the boy, pulling him into his chest. Izuku sighed, eyes falling shut as he buried his face in the fabric of Shoto's shirt. Shoto could feel the cloth growing damp under his eyes, but he didn't comment, simply rubbing comforting circles into the boy's back. After a few moments, Izuku shifted to look up at Shoto through wet green eyes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Shoto frowned, eyebrows furrowing slightly. "You have nothing to be sorry for, Izuku," he said softly, but the boy cut him off before he could say any more. No, I do," he rushed out. The night I left, when I..." He paused, taking a shaky breath as he collected his thoughts. "I should have never left you hanging like that." "It didn't have anything to do with me, though." He recalled Izuku's earlier reassurances. "Right?" Izuku sighed. "No," he whispered. "No, it was never you. I think you're the only one that could have got me to stay." Shoto blinked, looking sadly at the boy. "But you didn't." "No," Izuku frowned. "I didn't think I could." He trailed off, thinking for a moment. No, I think I really needed to go. Toga and the others, they really helped me with a lot of things I wouldn't have seen on my own." He paused. "And I helped them too." Shoto hummed as he threaded a hand through Izuku's hair, pulling a yawn from the boy. He grinned a little. "Get some sleep," he said, gently placing another soft kiss to his forehead. "We can talk more in the morning." Izuku sighed contently, snuggling further into the boy's hold. "I'll be there." Chapter 22, Epilogue. Izuku Midoriya had the heart of a hero. This was never in question, but heroes suffer too, and when a hero suffers, who's supposed to protect them? It wasn't easy, but things slowly, surely, started to get better. The school kept the news about All Might under wraps. All the public needed to know was that after losing his power and retiring from the hero world, his time in the spotlight had come to an end. The man would spend the rest of his life rotting in Tartarus with All for One, and Izuku was relieved to know that what happened to him in Kachan would never be known outside of the walls of UA. And he knew that Kachan was glad too. The boys had both been doing much better lately. They were in therapy twice a week, which, while Kachan had originally begrudged, had really helped him process everything that happened. The other students of Class 1A had been essentially taking shifts, making sure that someone was keeping an eye on them. Of course, most of that responsibility ended up falling to Shoto and Eijiro, who each insisted on spending nights with the boys, for safety, of course, and other completely non-relationship based reasons. Izuku still talked with Toga, and she and Nunchaku texted very often, and they would hop into the occasional video call as well. This was obviously kept under wraps, but Miss Aizawa knew how important his relationship with the League had become in the time he was away, so he simply turned the other way. And, as it turns out, heroes can, and do, protect each other, and a real hero will never let you go.